Welcome to the ReZero podcast. I'm your host, Wolf.
I'm your host, Gold.
I'm your host, Connor.
And today, gentlemen, we will be discussing Arc 9, Phase 2 of the ReZero web novel. We did it, boys. We fucking did it.
We are caught up. Absolutely. Good job, everyone.
What do we do now?
We will figure that out soon.
Yep. This is a fucking insane phase, boys. Everyone watching at home, I'm just gonna be straight up real with you. This is the most fun I have ever had reading ReZero. This phase right here, top phase of my existence.
I think it is the best phase on a consistent level, start to finish, in the whole story so far. Like, full stop. I think it's the best written phase, the best phase in general in the entire story.
It's an actual banger. It's insane. Like, I'm so impressed by the level of quality here and the consistency in just everything, man. And the way the POVs bounce around, it feels so good. Oh, Tepeya's has really, really like nailed down this process. And I could tell he was so excited to fucking write this because it comes across in the writing itself.
It's like he was stopped holding all of his cards to his chest, and now that you see what he's been holding on to for a while, it's just all exploding out in a really intense series of action scenes, character moments, huge game-changing permanent events.
Yep.
Like, this is incredible. Topped off with an ending that literally made me raise my hands up and just cheer out loud in how happy I am with it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I remember there was a moment last week we were talking about Petra, right? Our hopes for
yeah
her character. And now that I see it, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Petra,
it's really satisfying, yeah.
Wow.
Everything with Petra is my favorite part of this phase. I'll just get that out of the way now. I love that this has happened to her specifically.
Yes.
The framing for how she learns all of this, what she gets shown, is just so perfect. I could talk about it for hours, but I mean, overall, I mean, we kind of already said it, but overall thoughts is just Arc 9 is hitting it out of the ballpark again. Second phase in a row. It's great.
It's just a showing of consistent quality. I think, and I know it's early to say this because from the feeling of this, I wouldn't say we're even close to, well, maybe like a quarter of the way through this arc is the vibe I'm getting right now.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
This is already retroactively adding to Arc 7 and Arc 8 for me, and Arc 6.
Arc 6 for sure. This feels
600%.
This feels very much like we've finally gotten off the Arc 7, Arc 8 bus and are back on the actual tracks for the main story.
Mm-hmm.
But everything with Al in 7 and 8 definitely is being like improved and upgraded with what we're being shown here.
Yeah. And it's just, man, it's crazy. Like, I felt high emotions while reading ReZero before, but I don't think I ever had such like a physical feeling of anxiety and excitement bubble up in me while reading this story before like this. Like, I've never felt this way while reading anything. I was like, oh my god, one moment I'm like, oh my god, this is like the coolest shit ever. This is, oh my god, I'm learning so much about magic and the way this stuff works. And ooh, this is so hype, so many cool spectacle moments. And the other moment I'm like, no, why are you doing that? No, bad to pay, bad characters, no, bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many exhilarating moments in Arc 9 so far that's the best way to put it, right? Like, when you're reading it, you can't help but feel very captivated by it, you know? I think, like, it's been a while, like, it takes a lot, you know, to devise a scenario that makes me be like, oh my god, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yes,
you know, I don't know how it's going to come out.
Yeah.
But that happened with almost every single scenario in this arc so far. You know what I mean?
Right. I felt like I had been getting really good at predicting Tepeya's quote-unquote Deus Ex Machinas that he pulls, but then goes back and explains it in a really feasible and logical way of like how something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Felt's arrival at the end genuinely caught me off guard.
Yep, same.
I wasn't expecting her to show up and just blast Alta Mechanica in the side of the face like that.
Yeah, 100%.
But I just overall, with how incredibly fast paced this phase was, everything that happened into it, I know that there's one for me, but for you two, is there any like one particular standout moment that was just like your biggest shock, your highest emotion, your biggest surprise? Like what's the peak for this phase for you two?
I think it's honest. It is the Reinhard Owl fight. It's not even just because it's like such a big shockwave for the entire story. Like it almost feeling like it's been building up to this moment the entire time, you know. But and the tension and like there's so much emotion in every line of dialogue that happens in those fights. But on top of that, it is in my opinion, the best written fight of the entire series. It just flows so well. It hits so hard. It has that perfect level of tension where I'm like, okay, I have like, someone who's kind of like, you know, into the analysis of the story, I can kind of understand where, as a story step, this has to go. But how the fuck do we get there? I had no clue, and I was pleasantly surprised by it in a very entertained way.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Gold.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this arc has so many high points that really shocked me in many different ways. I think, like, of course, the Owl fight was one of the first ones, and it was, as you said, like the emotions being written. It shocked me, like the way, you know, like we talk about the depths of these characters, right? It's sometimes hard to convey that just through lines of dialogue or through their actions or like how they fight or how they convey themselves. But you know, this phase especially really had that with every single character presented,
Yes.
and same with the last arc. You know, it takes, like as we said before, back in the day, DePay used to do a lot of superfluous writing in his action scenes, but throughout arc 9 and even latter part of arc 8, really, like there has been so much poeticism to every single thing that the characters are doing, the way they're acting. It feels very visceral, it feels very in character, and yeah, like the imagination on this to, you know, show that, like, even though Al gets the better of Reinhard here, it like the thing that really shows is the fact that they're both losing in some way.
Yes, exactly. Like, and it's one of those things where it's so perfect for their characters, their character arcs, that like in this moment, what Al is doing is not just betraying like everyone around him. He is betraying himself because he's betraying Priscilla's ideals in a lot of ways, and Reinhard is being pushed to the edge, but in a way that doesn't make me feel unsatisfied, because again, we've always been nailed on that Reinhard is the strongest. It's like really hard to beat Reinhard. So how does Reinhard get in this situation? We're in the place where it's hardest for him to fight, which was already kind of alluded to in Arc 6, but explained more clearly here.
Yep.
We get like the reasoning as to why Al can even stand a chance here with Al Kanika, which is a perfect setup for the mechanics of this fight. We get really good character insight into why they're both here, and the way Al supposedly wins this fight is the most logical and makes the most sense to how you could beat Reinhard, which is getting at the heart, getting at the man, right? Not the hero. And it was so peak. Like, full stop. I don't know how this could be improved.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before that was the only way to beat Reinhard, really, is to get his human side, right? I also think it's very poetic because we see, like, Reinhard, I think very clearly towards the end of this fight, show his true colors in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And not like in he's an ugly character when he shows it like this, but like, I think this is just truly the first time he's ever felt like he's lost a battle like this. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's
fallible.
Oh, yeah. It's like, because it's so fascinating, right? Because it adds, especially from the way Al's narration is being written, right? There's so much character in the narration from Al's like POV, that it adds elements of like he's almost pitying Reinhard when he sees him like this at this point, right? Like he's I've brought you so low, and he knows that all he can be is a hero. So it adds that element of like, I'm crushing this man, but I will crush this man's dreams and all these other people's dreams and relationships to achieve my goals and my ends. And it really shows the level of selfishness and pride he has, but also it's a very good showing of the weakness and fragileness of Reinhard, despite how he is the world's strongest. And it's just so good. So fucking good.
It honestly feels like both of them had to compromise something in order to win or lose here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one of the beautiful parts here is that Al feels like, I mean, we'll talk about this throughout this arc, but like things don't go too smoothly for Al. Like, sure, he's still able to like get away from these scenarios, but like in the way that he does it, he's feeling like he's losing something. You know, he's like, I'm starting to be cornered. Like he feels like if it's nice when you get to feel like as a reader the same tension that a character feels, in the sense that slowly they're being narrowed along a path, right? Like Al feels like he has to do this because he has only one shot to do whatever he wants to do, become Natsuki Subaru, right? And he is.
I mean, kinda. It's. What he's trying to become with himself is not made explicitly clear here.
Yeah, but that is a valid theory. But we'll talk more about that near the end, I think.
Yeah. But like when we go to like this sort of like narrowing, like he's taking his shot here, it feels like he's starting to have to make compromises already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he even talks about that later in the phase where like he makes the point that every time he updates his matrix, he has to accept giving up every other possibility that could have gotten him where he wants to go and shove it all behind. He has to recognize and accept that it's gone. I can't do anything about taking another route to get where I would have gone. It would drive me insane. And
it's really... It's another great showing of the differences between not only Return by Death and Ao's authority, but it's a great showing of the differences between Ao and Subaru, whereas Ao is a prideful person, an arrogant person, taking it all on himself, making these decisions which to update his matrix, which a lot of the time are short-sighted and screw him over because he's getting so affected by the mental burden of what he's doing that he's not always in the right mind to use it. And it's a great showing of, okay, choosing your own checkpoint isn't necessarily a good thing.
No, it was never working out well for Subaru.
No.
Like, he has started updating the same way, like, towards the end of the Gladiator Island arc. His checkpoint was updating the same way that Al does his, automatically, like in the back of his mind, where he's just letting it update like further and further ahead every time. Which, I mean, I still wonder if that checkpoints like being set was related to Al setting his own in some conceivable way.
That's the kind of
when
like confusion, or like it's not as clear, right?
Yeah, well, when Satella wasn't setting the checkpoints for him, like at first it seemed pretty consistently it was at the same spot, but then it started passively updating. That matches the way that Al uses his stuff, where if he's in a fight, he keeps it in one spot at the start of the fight to keep going until he wins. But if he's just going about his day normally, in case there's a surprise attack, he updates it like every 30 seconds to 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's also interesting, right? Because there's more parallels I can start drawing between Child Baru and Al, which is really proving to me like the not futility isn't the right word, but like the ignorance and the lack of understanding from him and the way he's using his ability, right? Because we know that Subaru doing that was the wrong path. Whenever he says next, right, and takes his next thing, Al does the exact same thing, right?
Yep. Next.
Yeah.
His helmet full of his own gray matter.
Yeah, and it's Topei is doing a very good job of making me sympathize with the mental exhaustion that Al is going through, but also helping reinforce how much I don't fully sympathize, but pity him and what he's doing.
Yeah, I think one thing that happens throughout this arc with Al, for me, is that it's hard not to feel sympathetic to him because in a lot of ways you see exactly like the yearning that he has for whatever he's trying to do is very real. You know what I mean? And we can tell that it's born out of some sort of love and affection for everybody around him, you know? Like there is parts of him that wants to savor things, right? Like he doesn't try to kill people. He thinks very logically. He's not very cruel. He's, you know, like
there's no malice there.
Yeah. No. There's parts of him that's very, I would say, like what's cocky, right? Like I wouldn't say it's cocky, but it's like this very biting, right? Like he has a very cynical viewpoint of the world. So he's
cynical. Yeah,
exactly.
He likes to, you know, make fun of people who are optimistic or don't know as much as he does, right? Because he's kind of nihilistic in a lot of ways too.
Yes.
Like very much the like nothing really matters. I'm just doing this because it's just what's going to happen. It's what's expected of me. You're fortunate that you have so many favorable stars looking over you.
Right.
But your stars were wrong.
Every time I've tried hard to do something good, it's gone wrong.
Yeah. And there's something like optimistic about it still in the sense because even though, as you said, like his viewpoint is very cynical, he still believes that he is right now grasping for the one chance.
Like
he hasn't given up. Yeah, he hasn't given up on anything, right?
But that's interesting because I think I have the opposite interpretation that he has fully given up on doing anything other than what he's been preordained to do.
Now
this is like the world's longest suicide letter.
Right. I think we're right on that, right? I think I agree with you on that. It's just that like the difference is that this is his last imprint on the world that he feels like he can make. And if it goes wrong, then it goes wrong. But if it doesn't, you know, then he's succeeded, right? Like he's proven something to himself.
Yeah,
I think that's the point. You know,
it's the both are true element, right? Where he has optimism to complete this task, but in doing this, he is proving his. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of vibe, right?
Yeah, he's shutting everybody out.
Yeah. And it's that kind of thing. I mean, because he mentions multiple times, "I'm doing this so I can die," at least to Ye, right? And it has that element of like, yeah, this is as you were saying, the world's longest suicide letter. But it's him. He is trying by doing this, but the issue is it's not him trying; it's what he's trying to accomplish. That's the issue. It goes against what Naoko said in Arc 4 of like, it's not about the middle, it's about the end. But it's like almost the wrong lesson for Al, right?
Yeah, it's the one that Subaru almost took away. It's like, as long as I get where I want to go, nothing else matters, right?
And it's as we said before, very parallel with Greed If, right? And
yeah,
like the greed path. I mean, even with
I wonder why
even with the introduction of Ye here, right? Like she is very much plays the role like Elsa does for Subaru in the Greed If, which it adds that level of like parallel where you could draw there too, right?
In a weird way, she's kind of a representation also of like all in all, this whole arc for Al is kind of a showing of a lot of the ifs, because like he's gotten Reinhard to a standstill, like in Pride If. He's got like the extremely hostile mate that there's this weird violent / sexual tension going on, just like in the Wrath If with Rom. Everything that we just described happening with Greed If, he has
together, like because he has to make himself, he has to be himself, just like a Gluttony If.
And he's used a book to impart another personality out, just like in the Gluttony If as well. I think the only one that's missing is Sloth If, but that was also renamed to Rem If rather than Sloth, so we're not sure if that can really count.
So we don't know if it counts yet, kind of.
And that may yet be to come.
I mean, his Sloth If, and even then his Sloth If could be his whole thing of just waiting around and not doing anything until all of these things happen.
No, it's actually obvious. He's fleeing to Kararagi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it is all of them. It's the Synths all put into kind of one arc for him.
Yes, he does have to go to the geyser or whatever. Yeah.
And there's multiple mentions of him in the narration building sins upon sins, right? Like he's committing sins upon sins. It's just so good to pay. It's so fucking good. It's insane. Al's character is like a whole character study in itself, right? Like, it's so fascinating to me. There's so many moments where I'm like, ow, I hate you, but there are other moments where I'm like, ow, I feel really bad for you, bro. Like, just reach out for help. Please stop this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the problem is he did reach out for help, and his points of like contact, his like focus point, his
support network,
like gravity, his support, his pillar has just died, and he couldn't do anything about it. So there's nothing to be done anymore.
Yeah.
And that was his chance, right? Like I think that's what we're learning. I mean, we've all kind of known it. It's just like that was his one chance to do something for himself, as Al. He doesn't care about being, what he was imprinted to be, right?
Aldebaran, the following star.
Yeah, but like he just wanted, and it's sad when you think of it from that perspective. Like this was his opportunity to break free from the curse that he was put upon by somebody else. You know what I mean?
I guess it almost reinforces to him that he can't change fate, right? Because his whole idea was that Priscilla was that challenge. And now Priscilla is gone. Like he's like, okay, that was fate punishing me. He might blame himself. He might be like, okay, but if I didn't associate with her, that she wouldn't have died. It's like an element of, fate is mocking me. My stars are bad. I have no choice. Like, there's no way. The only one who could change fate is Natsuki Subaru, and I hate him just as much as I hate myself.
Well, what's funny about that? The exact, it's ironic because the exact indication of his presence having saved Priscilla's life for very long is Ye, who he keeps around as a reminder to all the things. Because, like, Ye was trying to kill Priscilla, and he only stopped, like, Ye would have killed Priscilla in any timeline in which Priscilla or Al wasn't around her. So, like, that being the case, it's very ironic that they're still here, kind of dealing with the ramifications of that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's that, but I mean, even if we look at EX5, like Priscilla probably dies in the gladiatory arena if Al doesn't hold off the gladiators fighting there as much as he does.
It's true. And it just adds that element, right, where as the readers, we can see how far down the wrong path Al is, and Al is so blind and ignorant to it and just can't see it. And it's not a frustration of bad writing, it's a frustration of like, man, please, I know what you're going through is terrible, but like, please see that other path, because it is there. Like, there isn't just one path. There isn't just fate.
Well, the thing about being a following star is you're just following what's laid out before you. You're looking around at everything else that there could be.
Yeah, that's why he's Aldebaran now,
And
I think, like,
and that's what's lends credence to, whilst not being confirmed, it is a like good potential idea, maybe him trying to become Subaru, because if he changes his name, he's no longer the following star, right? I think the logic he could follow as a potential example of where things could go.
I mean, I genuinely don't believe he is trying to stop being the following star. I think the idea of being the following star is one who's trying to walk the path set out for somebody else, or that's laid out by someone else. And that to become who he is, which we have suspected is like a clone of Flugel, that he has to go along with what's been laid out for him in order to achieve, like, whether that's enlightenment or success or saving the world somehow, doing whatever it is that's at the end of that road. He is fully accepted that I'm going to do what's been laid out for me because I can't be stopped. I can't lose here.
And it's
until Grandpa Rom shows him that, no, you absolutely can.
Until the stratagem of Volga Cromwell comes out.
I know, right?
Which is so good.
It's so good, and also it kind of plays into last arc a bit too, right?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that Sphinx's entire strategy was kind of predilected on the fact that he's not there, you know what I mean?
Yep.
If he was, then maybe Sphinx would have won,
Sphinx probably could have. Yeah.
Yeah. But we see kind of how brilliant, like, this is actually a great comparison, right? Al is somebody who has been taught so much by the smartest person in the world, Echidna, right? But Al himself is not a very remarkable person.
No.
You know what I mean? Like his innate talent isn't such that he has any special abilities. You know, he's just been learning so much over thousands of deaths, probably, you know, like hundreds of thousands of deaths, right? And at a certain point, you get to the limits that he's, and that's why it's actually kind of nice to sometimes see him like succeed a little bit or get something over in some of these fights, even though it's frightening when he does, right?
Mhm.
But it's like he's against the Sword Saint, you know, like the pinnacle of extreme talent, or against somebody like you know, Old Man Rom, who is so genius that it's like impossible almost to best him, right? And to be able to make it out of there even alive is a miracle for somebody who, as we see, stumbles through a lot of these things just through the virtue of tenacity. You know what I mean?
Yep. Like Al is nothing if not admirable for his tenacity and his perseverance through all of it, even if it is almost forced upon him.
Yeah. I mean, we learned so many horrifying things about how his ability works and how he uses it this phase that I was never expecting. Like, he gives himself rest time by having, like, a rest time and setting his matrix to, like, 3-4 hours before that and constantly killing himself, so he just gets time to breathe and exist outside of, like, a conflict. Which is just so many levels of fucked, right? Like... That's just really, when I learned that, it was really upsetting. I was like, oh my god, like that's how far gone he is, right?
So yeah, I mean, just for a bit of perspective, because we got a bit of the information on how long he lets the loops go on during fights like this and how many times these fights took, I did the math. He fought Reinhard for 6.5 months.
Oh my god.
And fought the Felt Camp for 40 more days.
Oh.
Like 40.
Jesus Christ. And he's looped in the millions of times at this point, right?
Probably.
Yeah, the Reinhardt one alone was like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, alone. And that's not even...
And we know that Echidna trained him to do...
Yes.
Yeah, more.
And also that she was also the only one that he was never able to beat.
Well, that was able to beat him.
Yeah.
Despite his ability. Yeah.
Despite his ability. What was it, Sharantage again? Sharantage mentioned?
Yeah, Shatranj all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so... The spectacle of this phase is so amazing, but it doesn't take away from the amazing character stuff. It's the emphasis I want to lay on this, right? Like, there's
Correct.
everything that is amazing about ReZero in this phase. The great character drama, the great psychological drama, the tensions, the cliffhangers, the reveals, all of it's there. But then you also get amazing spectacle action pieces and moments, really cool like lore and world building, like extra stuff that's just piled on top that we've kind of already theorized a bit about, but like it just kind of like adds that padding of like, this is just so lived in and breathed in and cool.
And I think this phase, more so than almost any phase so far, has the best plot layout, structure-wise.
Yes.
Like, there was not a single moment in this phase where I was like, I don't really want to read this chapter.
Yeah.
Like, every single chapter was engaging, exciting,
Had something to
well-written. Yeah.
I think his fight against Ratchins and the Pig King could have been trimmed down a bit. It felt like it was getting a little repetitive with the back and forth chess moves, but it was still well written enough that it didn't drag on like some of the earlier fights do.
Yeah, true.
I enjoy that all of those moments with, especially with the Tonchinkan trio, adds so much humanity to their characters in such a small amount of time, but also really reinforces where Al is going wrong with stuff and him like...
Right.
Even with him not killing people, that's almost him insulting these people because they're putting their lives on the line, right? Like...
Yeah, and also it's one of those things where Tepe, I think, is such a smart writer here because it shows very clear, like, you want, as the audience, for Al to get his comeuppance for what he humiliated all of the Amelia camp and also betrayed them and also everything. And you see him subtly get it here in a way that is very human, right? Like, Al has become an inhuman monster through this experience, right? And in reflecting that, you see the very human Feldkamp, who are just a bunch of ragtag group of misfits.
They're just
really.
guys.
They're
They're
just
just a bunch
people.
of guys with a couple of exceptional folks amongst them.
Yeah, that they trust each other, and they are very like passionate about the cause that they're fighting for, and they're still able to beat, Al in Volcanica.
And
You know what I mean? Like it's yeah.
so good, and it adds that. I mean, it's even reinforced by. It's either I can't remember if it's Ratchings or Gaston, but one of them mentions you've never really struggled in your life, have you? Right, to Al, like. Because they're coming from this different perspective of, yeah, Subaru and Al have really, really struggled because of their experiences with death and stuff like that. But it sometimes makes them very distant from some of the other struggles that people have, like especially when it comes to poverty, class issues, like feeling like an outcast in society. Because the majority of the people fighting for the Feldkamp here are criminals or reformed criminals, right?
Yeah, she has 3 thieves guilds working for her in this.
And it adds that element too of this is almost like their salvation for themselves because they want to better themselves. They want to be better. They want to do better by society and by other people. So it's so meaningful that they're there, even with us not knowing most of them. It has so much impact and meaning. And as the loops go forward, and from Al's perspective, you can see that it's grating on Al too. Like it's almost exhausting him more than the Reinhard fight because he's seeing all of this emotion and humanity and all of these struggles, and it's really hurting him that he's fighting them.
Because every single one of them is throwing what he's doing back in his face and insulting him for doing it.
Yeah.
Like, even when it's coming from Ratchin's foul mouth or Camberley giving this bizarrely earnest and heartfelt
Really
commentary to him as he's holding this bazooka.
Yeah.
I mean, like, shout out to little dwarf dude. He's got the honey coming for him too. That divine protection is doing him good.
Yeah. He's a happy fella. He's gonna have a happy life and a happy family. Hopefully. After his gate.
And that's
buggered.
And I think that's the difference here is the difference in unity.
Yes.
That Al can no longer feel. That he feels like he's severed. I mean, it's very clear here that like this is supposed to be something that's thrown in his face. It's like you used to have Schultz, you used to have, even Hankle that, you didn't really treat that well. But you have 2 people that are literally like pretty much captive to your whims beside you instead.
It's almost like blackmail. Yeah. Everyone's got a knife to each other's back, like almost psychologically. Like it's very toxic. All these relationships are extremely toxic, especially a lot of the sexual tension between Al and Ye, which I'm going to comment on here. It's such good writing from Tsupe to introduce a character like this for Al in this part of the story, I think, because it really shows that Al is someone that forms toxic relationships with people and has this apathy and this nihilism and doesn't allow himself to build meaningful relationships with people.
Well, because it's a foil to Subaru's relationship with Rem.
Yes, exactly.
in its entirety. Like, if we look through who's with him, like, we don't know what the relationship he's going to have with Roy is necessarily going to be here, right? Other than it's like, hey, if you do anything wrong, I'm going to kill you. But Roy's joined, apparently. But he's carrying along Heinkel's only salvation with him. Mm-hmm. So Heinkel's forced to work with him in order to get to what he needs most of the world. Felt's literally a hostage. Yeah. The dragon is possessed.
Ye is only here and motivated because she wants Al to make sure he dies because she's so terrified of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's even the one that calls him a monster to the opponents. Like, no, this guy's literally a monster. And clearly she knows exactly how his power works too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she even talks about how many times did you die for this at one point, right? So she just knows actively how it works. And but we get this really interesting moment as well where Al, like, despite him being so distant and inhuman at points, he has really human moments throughout this phase in particular. Like, there's a moment where I think we meet Ye for the first time in this chapter, and they're talking in a hut in the woods, and Ye is constantly knocking out Heinkel because he's just becoming a nuisance and a problem. And she's like, it would be easier to just leave him behind or kill him, And he's like, I promised him I would give him this, and I don't break my promises. I refuse to break my promises. And I think in a way that's him almost compensating, because I think he promised himself and Priscilla to always protect her, right? And keep her safe.
Yeah.
But it's also another element of showing a real human side to him of like, I keep my promises. What's the promise you want to make with me? Promise that I'll die? Okay, I'll die. I promise. It's just that it's simultaneously so fucked up and toxic, but also just so human. And it just feels so good, man. It's really nice to see the, like, especially with the character journey of Subaru, seeing him become worthy of being a sage candidate and a sage and gaining this wisdom and this emotional maturity, right? It's so important, I think, especially at this point in the stage of the story, that we see the toxic parallel to that in its entirety.
Right. And I think, like, it's important, too, because Al's entire thing, you know, people have called his ability a loveless return by death, because that's how, you know, like...
It works the same way that Subaru's Return by Death did without love.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, in that archetype that he embodies, Al, he has said, even to Capella, that he hasn't loved anybody. Like, he says something about not being able to love anybody, right? He says something like that. I forget exactly the quote. But basically, like, that is very clear to me as a reader throughout this arc, is that it's not that he doesn't feel love towards people, it's that he's actively shredding it all apart, because the one time, you know, every single time it happens, it seems to be ripped from him. You know what I mean? I'm guessing there's going to be a thing that is revealed that, like, no matter how many connections that he makes,
I mean,
it always goes wrong, you know?
I mean, with how he reacts to Sphinx, Witch of Greed at the end of Arc 8, obviously his relationship with Echidna becomes antagonistic at one point, right? And it adds that element of, like, I think him almost feeling so alone and lonely, and having that simultaneous, like, oh, but I have this connection with Subaru. Not only is he from another world like me, but he's like, we share a similar burden or authority, and that's what Priscilla's trying to set up there near the end of Arc 8, right? To give him that
that you two can understand each other, like, take that chance to do
Al
it.
is rejecting that, and in his entirely, he's projecting blame. I wholly believe he's projecting blame onto Subaru for all his ills and problems.
Right. And also, it's, like, very clear to me that he is jealous of Subaru in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
I think, like, that is what is borne out here. Not only because Subaru now has what he doesn't have in its entirety, right? Like, as a follower, you look up to somebody either because you are okay with falling in line with them, or because you have to get what you want. You know what I mean? And I think, like, him becoming subordinate to somebody like Subaru after seeing how close they are together, how alike they are, it just wouldn't ever be satisfying to him anymore. You know what I mean? I think, like, that's why he's doing such a drastic move here, right?
And it
is because, like, there is, to him, I think, like, no greater humiliation than, like, him not being able to get what somebody like Subaru, somebody as insignificant as Subaru, could also do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or could get that he can't get because of his bad luck, his bad stars. You know what I mean?
Because it's also, like, a great showing of, it's not like these guys are in a very similar scenario and situation. It is totally a difference of attitude and of willingness to learn from these emotional experiences and how this affects you, right? Because ultimately, Subaru, for all of the mistakes he's made, for all of the faults he has, is someone that always is trying to better himself. Even when he's kind of pretending to do it in the first couple arcs, it's still there. It's trying to happen, right? You can see the spark of what is to be. But
yeah, Akip was still doing his best to be a better version of himself, but whether that was impersonating his father, like he is in Arc 1 and part of Arc 2, doing what he can to not get left behind or given up or abandoned by everyone in Arc 2, or trying to live up to the ideal that he has of himself in Arc 3, and then his actual character progression in Arcs 4 and 6 are all just self-betterment for all of it.
And it's just genius from Tappei to have these parallels set up here so strongly, to have this moment where it's almost like, oh yeah, Subaru's resting. We're not seeing Subaru suffer for once, but also, oh my god, all of this stuff is so horrible and like I really enjoyed that. There's also an element of there's a moment where Petra at the beginning of this phase is explicitly like, I'll never forgive Al. Like, just like Roswell, I'm never going to forgive. And it gets the vibe that a lot of the characters aren't. But I think that the kind of direction I can kind of at least glean from this is I think Subaru is going to try. And Subaru is going to try and respect and understand Priscilla's,
her last words,
what she wanted for Al. Like, the love... Subaru, more than Al in that moment, is going to respect Priscilla's love for Al and intervene in a way that, even though he's been so wronged by him, he's, I think, going to be the better man and still try to help him at the end.
I agree.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think that's where it's leading to.
I also think that's explicitly why Tappei has made the writing decision to have Al go a route that doesn't have any bodies behind him.
Yes.
Right, because it's supposed to be like, if Subaru comes out and sees him killing people and stuff like that, he'd be like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, you're no different than an archbishop at this point. Like, I have to destroy you.
Yeah.
But
you're too
it's also in a way that doesn't like break my immersion, because the reason Al was not killing people is for like his last vestiges of feelings towards Priscilla overflowing from all of his grief and anger, right?
You know, also, as we said, it's like, I don't think Al's a cruel person.
No, not
you know,
at all.
he has no malice in his heart in that way. I think he genuinely believes that whatever he's trying to do is for the betterment of the world, but also it's a very selfish thing. It's a very prideful thing. You know, he wants to be the person, to be the hero or the sage. You know what I mean? Like, he feels like he has a responsibility to fulfill that role that, you know, is more for self-actualization rather than any explicit reason. You know, he's very insecure in himself. Yeah, he's very, obviously, to be himself, as he says in this arc, it's like somebody who's this insecure is very dangerous, because in their attempt to find who they are, they will ignore the whims of others, the feelings of others, because their brain is wholly occupied in an eternal realm, you know, like their head, that can be diluted by all sorts of things. And with the pain that Al experienced, the depth of that is more so than any normal human. And that's why he's so monstrous. You know, that's why he has this tenacious drive. It's because no matter how much the world is showing him that people love other people and can care for him, and, you know, he has connections to people still, he will deny that, because it is painful to realize that that's the case, even after how much he suffered, after how much people that he's loved suffered, you know?
To point back to Arc 8, there's that moment with Tanza and Yorna where Tanza mentions, you know, this is a cruel, nasty, and beautiful world we live in. And I think ultimately that's a moment of Tappei and Tanza really speaking to the heart of the story. And it's why I think it's so effective that it's at that point in the story it happens right before this, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's we live and they live in a cruel, nasty world full of horrible, horrible things, but there are just as many, if not more, beautiful things to experience and love and feel in there. And just because there are bad things doesn't mean that it's not a life that's worth living, or a life that's not beautiful, you know? And it's why it's so important, I think, that Subaru also, as a protagonist, values the value of life so much over, like, every other character in the story.
Yes.
And why it's important that he has to learn that his life has value too, that him dying, whilst not directly actually leaving people behind, it still has an emotional resonance and importance. And it's why I think Childbaru retroactively makes more sense to me with these parallels with Al, because it's showing me the process in the beginning and the showing of the journey of how Al got there. Because he's a middle-aged man, right? Like, he's also had all of these experiences with 400 years ago, right? So he's lived a lot. He's lived experience with this a lot longer than Subaru has. So I can see where he's gone wrong on this path and why this is happening. But it's not all is lost, you know? I mean,
try convincing him that, though.
Yeah, try convincing him that. That's the problem, right?
It doesn't matter, because she's gone.
She's gone. Yeah, exactly. it's I just also want to speak on some like before we move on, just from the Reinhard fight itself, some of the really cool magic stuff and like combinations of magic and science we see in this fight are really creative and cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, he's very inventive throughout this entire thing.
And it's also, I love the explanation of, okay, Al could never do much of this stuff before because he just didn't have the magical potential in him because of like his base stats, you know, like his ode, what he is. He himself, but him now having this connection with the divine dragon in which they can share mana and like resources and power, which is crazy.
He's just like infusing him the same way that someone like how Beatris can drain Subaru's mana, or the spirits can power someone up. It's just, he's like emanating it out. He does it to like heal his wounds later in the arc too.
It's really cool to see all of this creative magic and science stuff. Like, oh, how do I get past Reinhard stuff? I use a combination of magic and science to make it so the one thing divine protections can't predict, the lack of air and oxygen, being able to breathe, starts. And reading that moment of Reinhard grabs his throat and starts to choke was one of like the most shocking like sentences I've ever read in the series. Like, Reinhard's just been built up so high to see him vulnerable, right, and like choking and panicking, like his eyes wide. It was so cool, but also terrifying.
It does also go back. I mean, for one, that means that Reinhard does need to be able to hold his breath for an extremely long period of time. Mm-hmm. Because let's not forget, he's jumped off the moon.
Yes.
Right.
So if Regulus had indeed pushed him in any other direction,
he would have been dead.
He would have won. He would have killed Reinhard by pushing him into space where he can't breathe.
Watch where you're throwing it.
Yep.
Instead of the one thing it can jump back off of. But yeah, that entire fight is just an intense scene of, I'm going to be the D&D player that knows every single rule of the game.
Yeah.
And is going to use real world knowledge to try and break the rules. Like, I cast create water inside of his lungs.
Yeah, exactly.
This is banned by the game, but when you can actually just break the rules as much as you want to because you're in a real world that will follow whatever you try to do, it can work.
Filthy authority cheating abuser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the game rules don't matter here. I mean, like, for both of them.
I'm the bane of GMs everywhere.
Yeah. I think, like, one of the things about it, though, is that it shows you is, Al's been training for this moment for forever. You know, he knows that this was what he had to do, and he even had contingencies planned beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think, like, that being so shows quite a lot about, like, you know, he is somebody whose wins are only insofar as he can anticipate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he deep planned this out pretty effectively. It reminded me of the fact that I think Echidna like had studied with him for a very, very long time, and this is the result of that training. Yeah.
Would this be a good time to bring up like the prologue we read, like the
I think so.
Prologue? Yeah.
So if anyone at home didn't read this, it's linked at the end of the last chapter on Witch Cult's website. It is the prologue to volume 40, I think, of the light novel.
Yep.
And is part of the side stories No Stella, No Life, I think is what they're called.
Yes.
Which continue like this interaction of Al training with Echidna. So I know, Wolf, you said that before we started recording that you were a bit confused on like the timeline placement of this. So I think we can spend a few minutes piecing together the things that we know and figure out as much as we can for like when and where different things take place, right?
Mm-hmm. Because
so we know that Echidna's death does have to come, like obviously after Beatris and Roswell and everything happened, but because they don't know Al, he has to have been either created by or trained with Echidna before any of the
guys showed up.
Yeah, the happy life in Sanctuary.
Because he is specifically with Witch of Greed Echidna, and that's made very explicitly in not only his experiences but also what we see in here.
Yes. Where we see that she plays the same trick that Beatris plays on Subaru and Ryuzu on him, and he also figures it out super quickly. referencing GMs and events and flags, of course, just as Subaru does, and makes the point and says the words Natsuki Subaru, which make him feel something in his heart that he doesn't quite explain.
And also that Echidna is like almost explaining all of this to him. It gives me the impression that she was the one to explain that to him.
Yes, I mean, I think she's explained pretty much everything to him, and the only reason she's going to have that name is because she has the Tome of Wisdom as well.
Yeah, which we talked about last time, right? A speculation of, okay, Echidna very probably just downloaded information into Al about the future, right? And which is why he's so nihilistic about everything and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we know that whole period of time ends with Flugel has planted the tree and does eventually die to give his bones that have at least the sloth witch factor to the witch's cult, which is there for Satella, who was sealed beneath the tower that we now have confirmed Echidna was part of creating because she made the library.
Yeah, she was the one who tricked Ode Laguna into making the library.
Probably how her trials and exams are able to replicate all the events of the world
because she's
outside of anyone's own memories. Yeah, which is why they can't do Subaru's world as well.
Yeah.
They don't have as many details on it. So it seems like we have this Lion King that we get the name of as well, that we kind of also had referenced back in EX1. Yeah. We had Flugel, obviously, Reed, Volcanica, Satella, and I don't know if Hoshin was with this group or if he just knew Flugel as well, but we may as well put him in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Al was ever in this group with them. I think he was created from the copy of Flugel, as a copy of Flugel, like we've suspected.
Yeah, like an artificial shade, like an artificial spirit.
Yeah, with a version of Echidna that hadn't decided to side with them to save the world yet.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes, if she did do that, it makes a lot more sense why Hector was sent to eliminate her afterwards. If, like, the whole Pandora faction, whatever this is more vehemently against that, like a more malicious
actual
grouping.
Church schism almost, right? Because I get the feeling that the moderates, the witch cult, were almost people that were like keeping up, like maybe the maintenance of the shrine, or like they were not the maintenance effect of the shrine, but they were like very much trying to learn from what happened there. And then Pandora is the one who corrupted it with the radicals, right?
Yes, as well as just driving everyone
mad,
well and truly insane.
Yeah.
But it's, if we follow along with what this phase also implies, that Al's authority is, as we have always guessed, the pride witch factor coming in. Like, it gets directly referred to as your prideful authority, I'm pretty sure.
And he also makes a joke of, I'm actually the Sin Archbishop of Pride, Shrivelaka, which is obviously a joke, but I think there's the element of truth of he's technically the Sin Archbishop of Pride.
Yeah, he's taken it from him. Yeah. I think, like, one of the parts of that, which is very clear to me as well, was the fact that, like, come on, his side story's name's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. You can't, it's not, like, hard to tell that this is the Pride Witch Factor.
Mm-hmm.
But that does mean his existence is post Typhon's death.
Yes.
So, like, post the Pristella trap being set up and succeeding.
We also get a cool reference to this in his fight with one of the criminal underground members who could steal divine protections, and he calls him one of Typhon's followers.
Yes. Does Al call him a follower of Typhon, or did he call Al an apostle of Typhon? I got it.
I think
flipped.
it was
the other way around. Yeah, Al said that to somebody, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he says that, like, shocked, like, and almost angry from the vibe I get. So it also then explains his knowledge of Typhon stuff in Pristella in Arc 5.
If he was somehow involved in that spectacle.
Yeah.
As a note, we also know that this little prologue is before he loses his arm, because he holds Echidna's face with both hands.
Yes.
Yes,
and
that makes sense.
Maybe the event in which he loses his arm is his antagonist, like, whenever he has this falling out with Echidna.
Probably. If she is the only one that ever beat him, maybe that's how she did it.
Exactly.
Like severed his arm the exact instant he re-engaged his matrix.
Calling back to Greediff, and also the way she's like, oh, my love fades and stuff like that. There could have been a scenario that happened with that because she's so fascinated by the endless possibilities of his stuff, his authority, but then also like his otherworld knowledge. But then if she gets bored of that and maybe like throws him away like a broken toy almost, I can imagine how angry that would make Al, right? Like.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a very good that's the kind of vibe I'm feeling for how this went down, because I think that just makes sense for his character.
It would.
And also for the Witch of Greed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much confirmed that he's a clone of somebody now.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think...
And it would be interesting if... I just think it makes sense for Flugel, right? Of like, oh, she's fascinated by Flugel, but she can't have her own, so she makes her own version. And maybe... Because Al mentions at one point in this phase 2 about Satella, I think he's referring to, when he says this, and he's like, she could never look at me with her eyes. Like, she never looked at me in the eyes.
Yes.
And it adds that element of, oh... Is that the reason there was a schism between Satella and Echidna? Because Echidna hates her, maybe because she has Flugel, and things go wrong with Al, and Satella will be very angry if that was a thing that happened with Flugel and Al. That would be like to everyone else, that's sacrosanct. That's basically like, oh my god, all connections cut at that point, right?
I mean, it's partly that. My interpretation was that he knew that Satella, despite him being, I'm guessing, created with these feelings for her, like an inbuilt attachment to her, still knowing that she's only going to have eyes for Flugel, not for him.
Right. I think also there's part of me that wonders if he didn't get sent. I mean, I think like it's pretty possible that Echidna gave him like a mystery tour, like she gives Subaru, like a vision of his parents, stuff like that. If she did it to Al, but instead it was like, here is the past that here's Nazi Subaru. Here is what's going to happen in the future. Here's what happened in the past. I'm showing you visions of it, So he experienced it intimately.
On the topic of learning about your past and now family, we get some really interesting moments where, like, we've learned before, especially in Arc 8, but now there's this moment in this phase where he finally breaks Reinhard and he's like, yeah, family is the weakness for everyone. And it adds, I'm going to make the suggestion that a big parallel but then difference between Subaru and Al is that Al had not only a terrible relationship with his parents, but also maybe like either he never knew them or it was like an outright like abusive situation. And that adds, I think, an element to Al of nothing has ever gone right for me, because even in this other world, it was all terrible for him. He didn't have a loving support network. I think it builds.
It's entirely possible that he was maybe initially created with the same view of Echidna that Beatris and Puck have of being a parent and not a teacher.
Yes.
And so his perception of a parent is, I'm not even your mom, I'm your teacher, I'm just here to instruct you on ways, which she could have taken as a lesson in why she changed her approach in the future and decided to be a mom to Beatrice. Now, I still don't know where Aridna fits in any of this. That's still bizarre to me and unknown, because no one knows her except maybe Puck.
Well, I think she's like, she seems to be like, I would guess to be her first artificial spirit creation. Is my guess.
Probably.
And it was just a thing of maybe she was ashamed.
I'm gonna make a scarf. Yeah.
Maybe
it could be.
This is the part. This is the start of her time where she's starting to have doubts about the motivations for why she's doing things and like growing as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, I think one thing that's very interesting about that Aridna, right, is that she was collected by media collectors, right, and she was one of the things that like got like when, if I remember correctly, when the fortress city of Garkla or whatever it's called got attacked by Regulus.
Oh no.
Yeah, got attacked by Regulus before the start of the series. He stole the scarf, or was that a different media?
It was a different.
I remember it was a different meteor.
Okay, yeah. In that case, I wonder how, like, if like did we know that how Astasia came across Aridna?
So my thing is, especially with her taking the name Hoshin and having those like parallels between the two, I have a feeling Aridna was connected to Hoshin in some way.
I also think, basically what I was trying to get at is I think that Aridna is one of her prototypes. Like, it's not nothing that she was even considering too vastly, more like a proof of concept. And it was given as a gift to probably Hoshin, yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because it seems like she has no particular purpose, right? Like, unless she's lying entirely, right? But like, because it seems like only has this sort of transplanted memories of Echidna.
Well, the purpose of her is I think she was one of the first attempts at elongating or making herself immortal, because if she becomes a spirit and then is able to download everything that is herself into Aridna, she is practically immortal by doing that.
Yeah. Also think that like I'm pretty sure that Al was like in a lab, I don't think he was like
like a lab baby, or
yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I think he's created as a fully grown man. Apparently, Mother, aka Lust, tasked one of her former employees, slaves, workers, whatever they are, with getting something related to the witches, which turned out to be Aridna, because it was a artificial spirit that was not Beatris or Puck, and Beatris claims there's only the 3 artificial spirits in existence. A long time before the story, like 11 years beforehand, Anastasia gets delivered a wooden box with the rest of her cargo, and inside of it is Aridna. So it's either pure happenstance or someone somewhere delivered her to her.
Yeah.
I think the second is likely, considering how these plans seem to have been carried out through the ages,
The point here is that there's webs of connections between like modern day story, even 100 years ago, and then the 400 years ago. There's webs between these characters. There is something there. It's not a conspiracy, right? Like there is tangible lines and connections here.
But yeah,
a kid that has 1,001 red lines with thumbtacks on the poster board, all coming from her.
Right. I think like I think like this is sort of just me kind of saying pretty clearly that Echidna made Al for a purpose and has very slowly waited for this moment. You know what I mean? And it makes me wonder, now that we know that Echidna is free and about or whatever, if the journey leads to that with Al, if he's going to run back into her, if he's like, what would he do, right? If he did, I don't know.
It seems to me that it's gonna. This is just my guess, right? And this is just my intuition, but I think it's gonna be something that, whilst Echidna orchestrated, isn't directly invested in her, more that she's invested in it, if that makes sense, right? Because I think it's going to be more a thing of, like, especially with his antagonism towards her now, I think it's more like when he's going along with this, it's not him, especially with his dislike towards her, I think it's more, oh yeah, I'm following the purpose you created me for, but that's not necessarily doing something that he would imagine would benefit her right now, is what the vibe is.
That's a good point. It's like, I don't even know what if Al doing any of the things that he's doing right now has any tangible negative effects to the rest of the world or the schemes that seem evil.
I mean, he's
that we've kind of been. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right now he's saying like, I need to do what I'm doing for the next 5 days now.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be done with. But he has to remove Natsuki Subaru from the world, almost certainly throwing him into a geyser that's going to send him back to the real world.
My theory was right, boys. I'm telling you now. Yeah. I'm 100%. He's going to go back.
But what is his goal after that? Like, we know that he needed to get gluttony, for one. So, like, that's like a major component. But he says that we're only making like the one stop. If they were going for all of the witch factors, then he would have continued that stop to pick up Wrath as well.
Oh, I've got a theory, and I want to hear what you boys think. Okay, so my idea is, especially with how much Echidna like destroys the nature of this world and what she's done with her experiments, with her making even Ode Lagana by making the Books of the Dead by fiddling around with Ode Lagana, right? All of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What if her thing was you're the following star, and this cycle of sages coming from this other world every now and then, she wants that to stop. She wants the foreign interference to stop. Al killing himself and sending Subaru back is, we are going to end the cycle of sages. It's literally a thing of like, we're not bringing them back. Like, it tried to cut that forever from the concept of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Almost
Maybe.
Because if you think about it, right, like, it would make sense then why Al would wanted to have been the sage before, especially with like his motivations with like Arc 7, Arc 8 trying to push Subaru to be the hero. But now instead he's trying to fulfill his purpose, be himself, which may be the one who ends this foreign interference in this world. I think that is a very plausible motivation by Echidna here.
But you know what that makes me kind of believe, and this is just one of those things where I don't know how you got about it, but stick with me here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the fact that I think that the foreign interference in this world is sort of a concept that is like challenging fate, right? Like the people who are foreign to this world have invested something into the ReZero universe that allows the potentiality of whatever the observers, in quotes, right, have in plans for the fate of this world, right? I think that being opposed to that, like, is a bad thing. I don't know if Al would want, but maybe he does because he believes in the concept of stars and fate, right? Like, so maybe he thinks that somebody like Subaru being here is
fate.
a net wrong in the world.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
This is what I mean, because building on that, right? Like, this is fated. These cycles are fated to happen. It's fated to be a sage candidate. It's fated for this, that. What is the ultimate win for Al here in this ultimate nihilistic world? It's saying fuck you, fate, but not in the right way, in the wrong way.
Yeah, but that's all that Subaru is, and that's why he had to take him off of the board, is because Subaru can interrupt and change fate. Al is following predeterminism to its fullest, in that he's not even looking at any other option in any situation or circumstance other than,
maybe
I need to continue going the path that I'm expecting was shown to him in the Tome of Wisdom as this is the route I have to take. This is where it goes. This is the only way I succeed.
Maybe maybe then it's more of like a predeterminism to complete this goal that Echidna wants to get rid of, that foreign interference. And maybe that's either a thing that's supposedly fated, or the Tome of Wisdom is more about inflicting her desired future and obtaining the
part of
that.
Part of that's 100% the case, I think, because just by the nature of it, right? Like,
and all of its derivatives.
Yes. Well, we know that the Tome of Wisdom, we presume, shows the true future, in quotes. But
uninterrupted by Subaru's choices, but rather with what should happen.
The ending.
Yes, exactly, right? So, like, that is being decided arbitrarily by the book to what is satisfying to Echidna, right? So I think, like, that is what it shows, because it's the same with the gospel, in a way. It's a defective text. But all of them show what would be the best possible future for you, right? And yeah, it's like a guideline to get what you want in the untainted form that the Tome of Wisdom seems to be, right?
I think that's why it's important that Echidna creates Al, or is the important thing that makes Al be there, right?
Yeah, my interpretation of it was that the Tome of Wisdom is the series of events that would happen given everyone acting the way that they naturally would without the interference of specifically Subaru's authority. That if he just did what was expected of him and everything played out, obviously the fact that he has an authority means that the Tome of Wisdom accounted for it to a tiny degree, because Roswell was planning everything out based on the book, and it was showing him succeeding with, like, going against Elsa twice and dealing with everything else that happens there. But if it's without Subaru's active decision to go against it, which is what happens at the end of Arc 4 when it actually finally diverges.
Yeah.
That's probably the better way to put it, is that without Subaru's authority to change fate, which isn't what he was using it for before, but it is what he starts using it for after Straight Bet in season 2, Arc 4.
It changes from reactive to active, right?
Yes, because then he's making the choice, I'm going to do this to spite you and show you that I'm right, rather than I'm doing this to get past the situation and survive.
Yeah.
And that's what the Tome of Wisdom would show. Because if Subaru didn't do that and he was just using Return by Death to live and succeed, he would have had to go along with what Roswell was expecting him to do, which was laid out in the Tome of Wisdom. Which I'm guessing eventually leads to Amelia becoming queen as a broken and weakened individual, and Subaru being this unstoppable monster that's doing whatever is expected of him
the
by
perfected version
destiny.
of Al that likely Al didn't live up to be, which Echidna wanted. Which agreed.
Yes, exactly. And that's a part of it too that's interesting, right? Like Echidna sees Subaru, and this is why my presumption is as well, is because it plays on the theme of that, the people from outside this world would see somebody like Subaru, like Echidna would see Subaru's future and be like, this is what I've always wanted. I mean, we see how she interacts with them, right? Like, that being the case, Al probably feels like he is like wasted. You know what I mean? Like,
it's imposter syndrome, like personified, right?
because really, what makes most sense is if she created him only to use him in a hope to bettering Subaru or aiding him in some way in his pursuit. So like maybe in one of those passages you were just explaining where Amelia becomes a puppet husk on the throne, depending on the Tome of Wisdom, Al was there to help Subaru after Subaru beats Priscilla, kills Priscilla. Al is subjugated as his, squire or servant, and then they take over the world together or whatever, like that type of thing.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that it all comes down to that the people like Subaru are anathema to predeterminism. That's why he's always saying, screw you, fate. Fate Sama, I challenge you. I'm going to beat you. Yeah. And Al here this is how it's going to go. And this is the way it's going to work. And it does come to Echidna's understanding of it, that because she has seen the true future, and this kind of is a similar vein to Eren in Attack on Titan.
Yes.
She can't see another option other than what she's already been shown as what's possible to do, which is why she's so eager to get her claws into Subaru and see the world that he can see. Because unlike with Al, who just has his authority to let him advance to the next 2 minutes or 6 hours of time in general, which is exactly how she trains Subaru to use Return by Death in Greedif as well.
Yeah.
In that it's just going to get to the ending that's going to happen.
This is how we're going to save everyone, right?
Yeah. She just wants to see what other options there are. And I think that's the biggest difference between the Witch of Greed and Echidna, is that Echidna has come to believe there are other options. There are other ways to go about it. Because the Roswell that we see learning from her, Roswell A. Mathers, does not act like Roswell L. Mathers does. He's like a loving and caring person
emotionally
that's
mature,
planning and like worried about how are we going to do this? What's the way to happen? So I don't think Echidna ever even considered showing him the Tome of Wisdom
because that's probably
until she died.
I mean, reflectively, that's what she might have thought had gone wrong with Al. Not only what she did to him, but also like her doing that to him ruined him.
So she doesn't show it to her. She makes sure that because Beatris obviously knows it exists, tells her, here's a copy, wink, wink.
Wink, yeah.
But it's blank so that she doesn't rely on it.
Yeah, it's
or like follow it to a T.
And that's why we see Witch of Greed Echidna commentate on it and do it in the Witch of Greed way, where it's distant and has no love and it's just curiosity. But she probably read about that in the Tome of Wisdom itself, right? So it just...
the actual mother Echidna is like, here, someone is going to come for you eventually. I'm sure of it. Well, who's it going to be? Just that person's going to come. Okay, it's going to happen. Like, you're going to stay with Roswell for the time being. I'm going to trust you to do this. I'm sorry. And then she goes off in with presumably a self-sacrifice battle against Hector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least to the point where her body's almost like maybe depleted of ode because she uses it up and she goes into that stasis.
Right.
Well, she's dead. Like, this is a corpse. This is her graveyard.
Well, now she's dead, yeah. And I think, like, yeah.
to sum it up, I agree that the otherworlders are the problem here, and I think that Al is acting more like the Stargazers in that
Right, I
he's
was
been
gonna say
given
Yes.
this predeterminism and is following it to a T, not thinking that there is another way. Like, say, in the fight with the Feldkamp, every time he's really close to getting soft locked into things, and he's so worried about that.
But
He never even
knows the
considers
truth.
surrendering.
Yeah.
Like, the dragon is coming. At any point, he could just say, okay, I give up, take me to your leader, we'll discuss terms of surrender.
Maybe
And he won't have to worry about losing the fight anymore.
maybe the reason he quote unquote knows that is because he maybe learned about that specific moment in the tome. Like when the dragon arrives. Or was it just their connection that he then realizes it's there?
The dragon has his Book of the Dead. I'm sure it was just updating and checking to see that the situation was changed. And that if Al just dies thinking, hey, I need you to come quickly in one of the loops, then if the dragon checks the book every 2 minutes, then he's going to get updated.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, it just adds that thing of, like, the predeterminism, like, and maybe my theory, Echidna being like, the predetermined path for this world to save everyone is to get rid of this foreign alien interference, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much, like, one thing that I've always considered in the vein of, and we can talk about this now, right? Like, the vein of the world is that, like, there's the factions that we know are definitely evil, right? Like the evil Witch of Greed, not Echidna, but Witch of Greed, is definitely the most heinous character in the series, inflicted by far the most suffering in the world. Compared to the Witch of Envy, which is just like a force in nature, right? So, like, if we consider it like that, it becomes a bit easier to quantify that she definitely is. And then, like, she is an authority wielder. These witches who were called awful. She was born as a witch, the Echidna, right? She, she was in the same vein, a witch, like maybe she was an elf, a half elf, right? Like all these weird things that you're like, well, born as a witch, we hear that with Amelia, right, and all this stuff. But basically, she wasn't always evil, right? All these characters, though, that have authorities are directly opposed to the Stargazers, right? We kind of come to that conclusion. Thematically, there's a lot of parallels there that kind of see that they're like antagonists to one each other, like the world versus, fate versus people who can manipulate fate, and also the fact that blessings are controlled more or less by, the fate of the Stargazer, the observers, yeah. And like that being said, if this is all the case, why is it that somebody like an authority who's like Al would want to remove this outside influence if it's like breaking the web of fate that's been woven so far that is bad for the world, right? We like, determinism is nice, I think. Like, or sorry, like free will is nice,
Yeah.
I think like most people would like to think that they have free will.
So my posit to you boys here is the sage the observer's answers to the witches?
No, I don't think so. I think the sage is yes, I think Reinhard is specifically the answer to the authorities, which is why he was given what he has.
Yeah.
But I think the existence of the Pride witch factor, like the reason its authority exists in the reason that it works the way that it does, is if we go back to what pride as a sin actually represents, which is equating yourself to God. So in that sense, like Typhon's version of that was she passed judgment on others.
Everyone. Yeah.
And like that may be what the observers are supposed to do, and like actually and actively see like who gets reincarnated, like who gets turned, who gets a soul, et cetera, et cetera. And Typhon was taking on the concept of punishment herself. But Al's version of that, maybe because of the interference of Echidna, is that whatever fate that he has decided is going to happen, is going to happen.
That's his playing God.
His authority enables him to make whatever situation he wants to do, whatever action he wants to take, the action that he will take, and enable himself to do that. Which is why, as the following star, it's following the stars themselves, like the power and the mana and everything else that they are. Where, like, his whole purpose is to supplant the fate that exists, which Echidna may have trained him to do that because she's already seen the fate that's going to happen because of the Tome of Wisdom. And we know that she just wants all knowledge. I want to see the fate that you enact here, or here's the fate that I want to see happen. You exist in order to make it happen, as an example.
Yeah, to clear the way for Natsuki Subaru.
Who knows? Echidna could have made Pristella. She could have been the one to design the Trap City, to kill Typhon and get the
that's very
authority
reasonable.
for herself.
I mean, who else, right? Like, when an answer is so vague and it's like, somebody built this, it's like, well, it could be Echidna. And
It's Echidna or Flugel are the answers.
exactly. And like,
or they at least influenced Hoshin to make it for them that way.
right. And also, like, one thing that's interesting is
just taking credit. Sorry.
Yeah, true. Another thing is that, like, Al's purpose is to be a stopgap. Like, he is literally a blank space to kind of like he is like a Scrabble tile that's a free space, right? In the web of like fate that is weaving is like, Al, you need to kind of break this cycle. I don't really, like, you need to be somebody who can support what Subaru's going to do. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why he's the nameless star. You know what I mean? Like, he has no agency for himself. So that's the reason why he wants to
become himself.
Become himself, right? I think that's pretty clear. One thing that I wonder is that, like, do you think that because of his... Because, you're right. He's doing what Echidna asked him to do, right? Now. But, like...
influenced him to do. I think it's probably the best way to say that.
Yeah. But, like, he still is presumably against it in a way, right?
I don't think he cares anymore. I think he's just doing it because he's seeing that there's no getting around either playing into the hands of fate or enacting his fate into the world by using his powers.
Can't change fate, can't win, my stars are bad, I might as well just play this out and get this as the true future was predicted.
But Subaru interferes with it regardless, so he can't allow that to be a part of it.
Yeah, he's playing the role, and I think you're right. I think one thing that he probably doesn't even realize, maybe he does realize and he just doesn't care, is that, like, he's already too late, right? I mean, that's something that we know as readers, that he has to be bested, right? But, like, him already being too late is like people like Otto in the world, or people like Cecilus, right? Who have already been influenced by Subaru's presence enough that they are able to, oppose fate. And you might think they could have done it themselves, right? They could have, but it was because Subaru was here that they were able to, right?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of works into transition to something that I genuinely, even as small of a part of this phase as it was, have been the most excited to talk about, which ends with Petra being fully influenced by Subaru here.
Having the melee voice in her head, but it's Subaru.
Yeah, it's Subaru in her head, which, I mean, hey,
she's also
we get him back in the arc.
Like fucking arc 2, arc 3 Subaru there. Like, oh, come on, let's do this.
Well, this should be the Subaru that we know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, like, the specific version of him that she has is immediately post, like, I know hell Subaru, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like, this is the one who is just determined to win.
This is post,
but also has the biggest middle finger up towards Echidna right now.
Yeah, this is the post Great Rabbit eaten, Great Hair eaten Subaru have tea party with Echidna, then kills himself to stop Satella with Petra's handkerchief, which she she feels guilt in her dream. She's like, oh my god, did I kill you? I'm like, oh.
Now, just as a question for that, do you think Echidna knew that Petra was going to see that
Probably.
Yes.
and made the choice to like she could have turned his fucking jacket sleeve into like a
That's
bludgeoning
why I'm so
weapon or
specific, yeah.
done anything else, but it's like, no, I want this.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's a giant, I mean, knife through the heart to Petra having to witness it all as well. But someone knows. Like,
Yeah,
not just that he loops. Petra knows
where
he
he's
has
from.
returned
Yeah.
by death because the loop she saw is the only time he's ever explained it out loud.
And it's also what triggers the way Al removes Reinhard from the board, where now that he's injured Reinhard and cast black hole magic basically on him, he now a wounded Reinhard has to fight Satella or the Witch of Envy to a stalemate for 7 days or whatever until Al does what he needs to do to fix this then. So it's like
recover too.
a huge break of the taboo. But if the situation is sorted out, we then have a Petra that knows all this happened. And we have someone who can support Subaru in a more direct way than anyone else can. And I think it's
she's not going to let him do anything because she knows he's going to keep getting himself killed over and over again.
I mean emotional support, Connor. I don't
There'll
mean,
be angst about it, but I mean,
his actions, his Subaru stuff. It more like, he's actually got someone who fully understands it all and isn't trying to manipulate him.
Do you think that Petra knows about the real world? Because she saw it in the memory.
Probably not, because
this loop wouldn't have referenced it at all. Because this loop starts with him waking up in the sanctuary after being eaten by the rabbits, slamming his head on the ground, coming to the tea party, in which he specifically talks about the return by death, then speaks with Minerva, speaks with Daphne, comes back, works with Garfield for a bit, sacrifices the Ryuzus, then gets consumed by the Witch of Envy, possessing Amelia, and finishes it with stabbing himself in the heart. Any references to the real world are the first tea party and the third one, but there's none in the second.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that it'd be very interesting if she knew, right?
His Books of the Dead, like, even if she got one that, say, had Subaru first time and got everything, it only records the memories of this world. It wouldn't include his stuff from his previous...
Now, notably, if she does find out what Al's planning to do with the sealed Subaru and Beatris,
does she read all these?
The Subaru in her head might tell her, that's going to send me back to where I came from, outside of this place. Like, I'll never be able to get back.
And the taboo can't really do anything anymore right now. Like,
because she's occupied fighting Reinhard.
And if she's
so, like, he can say it as much as he wants, you know? It's like...
And if she's pushed back, these are permanent consequences that will not only impact Petra for the rest of the story, but also Subaru a lot.
Yeah. I think, like, a really great part about this to me as well is the fact that, like, I want to believe that the voice inside of, Petra's head, that Subaru, this is something that you guys might not agree with wholeheartedly, but I think that in very quick time, this is going to be Subaru's attitude, even though he's captured by Al in that orb. Like, he's going to come out and he's going to have the same energy. He's going to be like, Al, you need to stop this. But I know why you're doing this.
It's
fine, but you can't do this.
It's from a story meta perspective why Subaru isn't here right now, because he would have broken Al down, right? Like, because the whole point is that with the empathy and kindness he's showing to Al, if that had gone on longer, he probably could have broken Al down. Considering the reason why, like, from a story perspective, this happens to Subaru is because Subaru is the solution. It's the same thing with Arc 6 when he gets amnesia.
As a point as well, Beatris with her Minya spell is the only one that has an attack that could kill Al without letting him kill himself, or at least stop him in a way that would prevent him from resetting.
She could, like, permafreeze him.
Because she could either, like, Minya him in some way that grabs him,
or him to another dimension.
Yeah, she could. I mean, maybe that's. We don't know if him dying in Ulshamak, if that, like, little pocket space would really matter.
Because the whole point of his matrix is it has to be in the territory that he assigned. So if he's removed from that territory, he can't. Like, that's a big condition he keeps on talking about throughout this phase, right? Like, he can't.
Yeah, but, like, we saw Subaru's authority work in the warped subspace of the place that was in the Agoria Sand Dunes that was designed as, like, a trap.
But
Well,
Like
what if
there is some workaround with like time and space. I wouldn't put it past Tappei to say that the extra dimensional space, because it was built there, is still within his matrix or something. Like that is a level of magical interactions we can't guess.
we can't predict yet.
But he
what if
also has
Beatrice
things like
yeah.
EMT and EMM to make
Yeah, exactly.
Al like invulnerable to his own shit.
Yeah.
Like, what if Beatrice like replicates Olshamak or whatever, and then use it on Al?
That's also true.
Sharo, or whatever it is.
No, like
like the
OL
scaling one.
Shaman.
Oh, El
Yeah.
Shamak. Oh, damn. I didn't even think of that.
Because they're both students of Echidna. She might know, and she was on the library.
She also learned a lot about a lot of the theoretical principles Echidna had, right? Like the whole thing with Subaru and his Corleonis affecting it. Like she had a specific name for it, like as a theory or a concept. So
Yeah, I mean, I think if anybody else knows Echidna's forbidden jutsus, it's
Well, yeah, like Roswell even made the point that, like, oh yeah, Beatrice's magical knowledge is basically second only to mine. She can explain to you, Amelia, one of the, I mean, no offense to her generally, but when it comes to Booksmart's dumbest characters in the series, it's like she's not that intelligent of a person when it comes like actually knowing things.
right.
Of like how to make all the magic work together to come in as like a 6 fielded effect into Rom's horn space. Like Beatrice knows how to interact magic like that.
Right.
I'm sure she could figure it out. I'm not discounting that she can figure out how to get out of it from inside.
No, that's what I said. Yeah, I was like, I think we're just waiting for the moment where she figures. I think like it's either that or they're back in the real world for a while and then she figures it out, or somebody else from our world figures it out, like from this world. I mean, like the ReZero world.
I just think it would be super effective at this point in the story for Al to technically, quote unquote, succeed, throw Subaru back to the real world, and then we have like a whole moment with that. I just think that would be a really interesting and emotional moment of Subaru deciding he has to leave his parents and all of
And
this.
I also think that, like, you know, at that point, you can have the cat be out of the bag now. That, like, okay, Petra knows that, you know, Subaru is returned by death, and also that, you know, like, she knows that he's from a different place, right? Like, definitively beyond the Great Waterfall. And then he's back in the real world, the reunion with his parents, but also he's with Beatrice, who's then experiencing the real world, comes back. They eventually come back to the ReZero world for, you know, whatever. He has to deal with that emotional thing, but then at the same time, you know, Beatrice now has the memories of what it's like in Subaru's world, and that's something that is, you know, very precious. You know, I think like that'd be a really cool narrative.
I would adore reading that so much. I wouldn't be able to put it down. I might even write a fan fiction about it afterwards.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, it's just a cool concept. I think it works so well for this moment in the story, because then it also adds credence to Petra's whole arc, which I love that Petra is the one this happens to, by the way.
Yes, so much.
It
couldn't have gone to a better person.
Because it can't be someone like Amelia or Rem. So having it be Petra of all, it hits so hard.
Who looks up to him, but also has this like righteousness inside of her.
Also has so much potential and is smart too, but she's also in a way like Subaru vulnerable because she's a child still, right? So that has that vulnerability element, and she doesn't have RBD, but she has. It's so good to pay. But like, I think that adds credence. That happening to Petra adds credence to, okay, they go back to the real world and Petra's doing her own thing until they come back. I'm just saying, I'm gonna make it my prediction here. That arc that I've predicted is gonna happen.
I think one prediction that I have with Petra too is that she's going to start taking on Subaru's mannerisms throughout this arc.
Yes,
and she's going to act like him, you know, and it's going to be like Subaru's still here in a way, but it's Petra.
We even see that with when she wakes up and Meili's like, "Oh, only son, like, please be here for me," and she says the line that Subaru says to her to comfort her. Like, that is her actively taking Subaru's role in this scenario.
Yeah, she's 100% acting like him right now, and it's like through that encouragement from Petra Baru, I guess this is.
Yeah, Petra Baru.
And that's so like if in that way, right, like the rest of this arc is like we get Al's perspective, Petra perspective.
Petra. Yeah.
She, like, her being the main character here is actually like something I wouldn't expect, but like being like a secondary main character to Al in this arc, you couldn't like I wouldn't be able to guess that in a million years, but it fits so well.
It fits so
in the sense that like the rest of Amelia camp is all scattered about. Petra is, like young. She has stuff to prove. She has a lot of room to grow. Here is her arc trying to develop.
Moment.
Yeah. I think like that would be really satisfying.
It's so cool. And I think it just adds another thing of like, it builds so much on her relationship with Subaru, and then seeing the hero Subaru that she's always envisioned be like an actual, not fully, but a actualized concept that she's interacting with is such a fascinating idea. Because I think it's going to be intersecting like with the Book of the Dead Subaru that is there, but also with her idea of who Subaru is. It's like a combined idea, right? So it's just such a fascinating. It's just so good, man. It's so good. I'm so excited.
Now, I want to propose something ridiculous with going off of what we were talking about before, of like on the off chance that Betty and Subaru do get sent back to Japan. If like we don't, because of Al's age and him like referencing still modern-ish stuff, we know that the time to come to Lagunica and the time to come like from Japan are not 1-to-1, because he's been here for 400 plus years, but he's referencing stuff from only 40 years before this was written, right? Like TMNT and GM stuff and all that. Like that's all relatively modern things. If this geyser that he gets thrown down to, don't put Subaru and Betty like a year and 3 months post Subaru vanishing.
But like Al's
But
Japan
they
time?
put him, no, I'm thinking relatively close, but slightly earlier than when Subaru first gets transported. And in a bit of a grandfather paradox loop here, that when Beatris finally figures out how to get back, Subaru realizes that them doing this is what sends him to Lagunica in the first place.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that a lot. Because then,
like why does he just randomly leave one day without an effect? He couldn't be there. Yeah.
Like right now, Beatris is the only character we know of for certain that can create another dimension and send people into it.
Yes.
So if she manages to figure out how to do that in Japan, like it could make sense on how that happened to Subaru in the first place. Now this is tinfoil, but it would be cool.
It would be cool, but I have a good feeling about this one. If we're wrong, I still am really excited, but I have a good feeling about this idea. I don't know. It's just like something fits here, like a puzzle piece.
I think like one thing that we have to kind of consider is if Subaru is going to get back into the real world, it has to happen. I think, well, at least this scenario is perfect for it, right? It doesn't have to happen now, but like it could happen with Pandora doing it for some reason. But like here in this scenario, it fits because the narrative tension of it, but also because it's another hurdle for Subaru to, like, it would be beneficial to every character pretty much.
Yeah, because
like,
it'll be his biggest emotional hurdle yet, because he would have to make the active decision to leave his parents behind. There's no, I'm taken away from you. This is me actively deciding.
In this point, he owes nothing to Echidna anymore at that point too. Because
as I was going to say, as a counter to that, he could use this as a chance to get genuine closure with his parents.
Yes.
And go back and fix his mistake of leaving without saying, I'll stay safe. Thanks, Mom. I love you. Whatever he says to her in response to
simultaneously is very satisfying, but then also has that really emotional gut punch, right?
Yeah, and it's also like painful because like in a way that was all a facsimile, right? And that's something he'll always know. Same point. Even in that facsimile, he wasn't fully honest with them. And I think like him saying what he's experienced now throughout the story, right? Like it was almost too early in arc 4 for him to be like, no, I really have to stay there. You know what I mean? But now there's literally no, like he's like, I have a life there. I have family. I have friends. I have people that I want to marry. You know, like
it's not even just like his own life aspect. It's also people's lives are on the line, right? Like I don't know what's happening. People are in danger. I have people. It's not just that I've built a life there. It's those people need me too, right?
Yeah. I think that would be very interesting to see how they react, because they would see a entirely different son. They would get a lot of closure, but also Subaru would be like, there's
Wow,
so
that was
much
an
in this-
amazing trip to the cone beanie there, Subaru. You seem great.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a really
exactly.
good callback to the moment in that trial in Arc 4 where he says to his mum, I'm going somewhere far away and you won't hear from me for a while.
Yeah, I won't be able to take care of you when you grow
I
old.
won't be able to take care of you when you grow old. That adds, like, that builds on that. I'm telling you, boys, we're cooking. We're cooking.
I think it's a possibility for the first time in the series that this is something that he can go, because removing Subaru is not Al's 7-day goal. He needs to remove Subaru in order to accomplish the 7-day goal.
Yeah.
He's already spent 2 days. So getting to Kawaragi and handling that part of it can't take him that long.
I mean, he's
to
riding
do.
on Dragonback now, right? So
Yes. Like,
he's
getting
gonna
there
be
is not
soon.
going to be...
I'm
no one but Klein can catch up to him.
I'm making a prediction that it's going to happen at the end of the next phase, or maybe at least the phase after that, and we're going to have Petra try and come in with the Amelia camp to try and save, and it's still doesn't go great, but like there's a, like, you see those climactic moments.
Petra can't stop to the Amelia camp. It takes a month to get back to the Roswell mansion from
you're
here,
right.
let alone all the way to the capital. Like, without Dragonback, the only like quick passage of time is Klein as an option, which they don't have a way to contact right now.
Yeah.
So
I could also see there being a very interesting, an unexpected ally or unexpected character. It's like, who knows if, like, I have a feeling, and this is just a weird thing, that like there's gonna be a moment where like Al is doing something and then the witch cultists come on and are like, hey, you need to stop this. Like, maybe Capella shows up and is like, oh, you remember me? Like, I need you to unhand him, you know what I mean? It's gonna be more like, do we root for Capella to try to stop Al here or something like that?
It would-
yeah.
It would build on their fight previously, and also be a thing. Does he like take her authority? Like it'd be kind of like a thing of like, oh, he's collected 2 now. It'd be like, oh.
Well, one thing that you have to realize is that, like, I honestly I see the felt conflict going forward, but I think that like there's an opportunity, whereas like Pandora shows up by the end of whatever Al's doing and is like, hey, you need to stop this, right? Like, I think that's possible.
watch, Ye has just been Pandora this entire time.
Dun, dun, dun.
Everyone's Pandora, but yeah.
We should probably talk a little bit about Ye as a character, because she's not technically new from what I understand, but like she's in the main story. She's a new major character for the first time in a while.
Yeah, first time she's featured. Same as like Ezo and the rest of the Felt camp.
Yeah.
Yep. I think I really like Ye. I mean, we rated on the waifu list. I put her as A, right?
Yeah, like low A, high B tier on that list is where I think she ended up.
I cannot find any fault in her mindset here. You know what I mean? Like, what are like you are literally enslaved to this man who is like indifferent about you, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, he's so powerful. I literally cannot. Every single time I try to kill him, I can't. Right? I'm
in the
stuck with
space
him.
of a battle, she introduces a new technique that he's never seen before, and he's mastered it by the end of it.
And and you could tell that sent chills down her spine, right? Like,
yeah, because she is. I remember like a new side story came out, right, of Al and Ye when they were still with Priscilla. And one of the things that was mentioned is that she's the second strongest shinobi in the world.
Yes, the strongest in Wallachia, now that Olbart's lost his arms too.
Yes, that too. And he's saying that Olbart's prized student was her, right?
Yeah.
So like, she is the younger, coming up shinobi who has all these crazy powers, and she is like, you see how lethal Olbart is, right?
Yeah.
In the same way, like, she should be able to win any fight against an unprepared opponent, right? But like,
well, he even said that if he wasn't handicapping her by restricting her to non-lethal, she could kill all 500 people in this forest.
Like, because she could pick them off one by one. If she had the ability to kill, they would have just outright run. The reason why they were getting deadlocked is because Al is being stubborn and sticking to what he believes Priscilla would want.
But I also think like she's very, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of characters who, you see and you're like, oh, they're just a psychopath. There's something very rational about the way that Ye thinks, and very honest about it too. that makes me feel bad for her in a different way, which is just like she's broken down, she's miserable, she doesn't want to be here,
The proof to me is when she keeps on coming on to Al, and she mentions at one point, oh, that's just one of my shinobi weapons. I think she has just been so terribly traumatized by her life experiences and the things she's gone through. I mean, she even mentions her training regimen. She had to run to the capital over the period of like half a month with like a single bamboo shoot full of water or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible.
Well, we see like what type of psychopath Olbart is, right? So like it makes sense that like in the same way that Cecilus became a monster, she was trained to become one too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even she's
probably our first sociopath in the series rather than a psychopath, of someone that was probably born normal and through training, trauma, whatever experience triggered it, has lost the ability to feel empathy, like feel love of any real way, that the only emotions that they can feel are anger and fear and like control. It's like she's doing everything she can to get any amount of control in the situation
in her life.
If she starts sleeping with Al, then she's probably hoping that forms some bond of attachment or affection or care
him in some way. Yeah,
at least a little bit, or maybe just puts her in a position where she could kill him reliably without him being able to stop it.
Right, that too. I think there's part of that which is just like when you're in this helpless situation, she has mastered the kind of controlling her emotions now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's like you look at Al and you feel pity for him, but like the truth is he does have this woman captive, and in a way he is torturing her every single day by the reliance that he puts on her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that, and he feels awful about it, and he talks about it,
but he's
right?
still doing it.
He's still doing it, right? And it feels like this, awful, like if anything else if anything happens, right, you could still at least point to what Al's doing here and say that no, he is the antagonist here. You know what I mean?
Hankle is here as a literal human shield.
He keeps on using him like that. And the fact that Hankle is constantly being like, yo, we're not killing these guys, right? Like, Hankle is actively trying to de-escalate and make the situation less violent.
I just want to save my wife, man.
Yeah, dude, I know that I am an enemy to my entire nation. I just love my wife so much, man. I wanna take care of her.
I know.
And
that was such a funny reveal, by the way. I mean, just like when Hankle shows up is like, oh, like what do you do? Like, from
what
behind
have
the
you
bar.
done? Holy shit!
Yeah.
Is that Volcanica?
I mean, I have a complicated relationship with my son, but what have you done to him? What the fuck? Because there's also a moment where Ye's like, oh, you're concerned for your son, aren't you? And he's like, you're concerned for your son, aren't you? He's like, shut up!
I do like that Felt, though, has fully empathized and understood with Heinkel's motivation here, though. It's like, I've seen her. I've heard about her from Carol. Like, I get what you're coming from. You don't need to make excuses about this to me.
And she even says it in a way where it's not, I'm passing judgment on you. She even says, like, we're just in different paths or methods. I don't hate you for it, right?
Yeah, we're just on we have opposing goals at the moment, and we're on opposite sides of that conflict. Because, like, she's seen this person's unconscious body in the Estrella Manor. It's like she's clearly knows that this is a real thing that he's trying to do. And it makes absolute perfect sense.
I mean,
why he's doing this.
Again, he is the person the most in the right here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's also very fitting to like the idea that he's been. You don't really know.
By the way, Gold.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. I say it makes sense that he's the one who's being tricked here, and it's very funny in that sense. But also, it's like you don't know what Al is capable of until now, right? So it feels like he's been looped into something way over his head. And I think it's really good writing into Pei's part to say that, like, initially Heinkel was like, yes, I will try to do something with Amelia Camp to do whatever I can to get that blood, right? But then it's like, you said that you'd be able to, and this is what you did, And it's just like, he's there only for that leverage. Like that's the same thing that I talk about Al being like the definite antagonist, is that he is manipulating Heinkel's feeling, and also just to get a what's it called, like a contingency plan against Reinhard.
Mhm.
And it's like him being this observer makes me wonder if by the end of the series, or end of this arc at least, this like little character arc, that he's going to finally stick up and be courageous against Al and probably be one of the contributing factors into defeating him.
That's a prediction I could.
I really hope so, because even Al is recognizing that if this guy understood how powerful he actually was, it would be a real problem.
Yeah.
It's like he's acknowledging that he doesn't think he is as strong as he is, but he's still part of the Estrella family. He's still leagues and miles better than any of us ever will
Part of the
be.
Australian family. He uses him as like a human cannon to throw fucking logs. Like, Mad's.
I mean, he takes Echidna's like bazooka that we saw what damage that did in Pristella, and he tanks it entirely.
Yeah, and still alive. He tanks dragon hits, and these are full dragon hits. These aren't hold back dragon hits.
Yeah. I mean, that too, like, one thing that I thought about is that, like, is definitely of the lineage of the family. And I think he just hasn't really awoken to that potential. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's given up on it. I think, like, that being said, like, he's probably just as strong as everybody else there, as Al, as Ye, in a one-on-one fight. Like, sure, Al has his dumb hack, but and all of Volcanica's power, right? But besides that, in normal combative standards, he is on the same level as Ye and Al.
This is also his time to rise to the occasion because Reinhard can't intervene. I think that's what's most important too. Like, from a writing perspective, this is his moment in the story to come and shine, right?
And think about what it would mean for Reinhard too, to know that his father is somebody that beat him. You know what I mean? Like, it would feel, in a way, a bit of a repairment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's how you can start to build a relationship, because they think,
like, I'm your father.
I'm your father,
like,
because I did something I couldn't do for you. And it's like a thing of like, I can still do this for my son, or even be this teacher for my son. Say, yeah, this is how I did better. Not in an arrogant way, but in like an actual fatherly bond way.
Well, even if Heinkel somehow does manage to win some kind of battle against Al and Volcana de Baron, that's something that Reinhard couldn't do. And like, that may break him from his self-imposed limitation that he thinks he has from losing to Reinhard in a one-on-one sword duel as soon as he got the Sword Saint.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I wonder how this arc's going to... Volcanica dying soon enough is likely, but like, if that's
I think
the
Volcanica
case,
dies before the end of this arc.
Yeah.
I think, like, in that being the case, then imagine if Heinkel just does it by himself. Like, Roswell's entire thing is like, he needs it, right? Like, he wants to kill the dragon, but like, I think Roswell is not, pragmatic enough not to be like, oh, I wish I did it, right? He'd probably be like, wow, you did it, right? But for Heinkel, it'd be so important, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I'm gonna throw out the prediction here. I think it's gonna be a moment where, because we get this set up between Farsail and Volcanica and Felt now coming with, and adding the element of Dragon Baron being like leaning towards 50-50 between Felt and himself, right?
Which Aldebaran's nervous that if they continue to spend more time with each other, that's going to swing to Felt's side.
Yeah. It then adds that thing of, maybe that's a moment in which, especially because of his conscience, because we see that at the end there, when Heinkel is talking to Felt, he's getting a conscience about what's happening. He's going to, like, the dragon's going to come betray, and Ye's going to go all out, and Heinkel's going to step in, and it's going to be in a way in which Heinkel is not going to benefit from the death of the dragon and be able to get the blood to Luana, but he's going to take the heroic option and save Felt, basically, is my prediction.
I think you're right. Like, the whole situation that he's in, especially with the foreshadowing and setup to it with his battle against Missoria last arc, him being able to take on Volcanica here, who is either limited by or enhanced by Al's consciousness overriding it for the most part. Like, there's going to be some level of Al's own underestimation of the old man
Yes.
in whatever Volcanica comes at him with.
And then
but
we'll have
more
that
than
moment
that-
of him fighting the dragon too, right? Maybe. Or
Yes, and I think he's going to be working alongside the Felt Camp to kind of loop back around to
and that's
not only supporting like the rest of what the Estrella estate is supporting,
Yeah.
but also going back to undoing his mistake in Arc 5 of taking Felt captive and keeping Reinhard occupied for as long as he did.
Great story beat there, because but then also it makes sense not only from like a logical perspective why Al would recruit Roy, right? But then also adds that element of Gluttony being there adds an opponent either to Hankle or someone else for an important moment. Maybe Petra with the immediate camp or something to that degree. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I wonder though, do you guys think that like the Felt Camp will be the major player in this arc?
As much as the Priscilla camp was in 7/8.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think we're probably going to have
9 and 10 Felt Camp.
I think
it wouldn't shut. No, I don't think it's going to be 10. I think it's just 9 here. My expectation, and I wouldn't be surprised, is if the Betty and Subaru end up in Japan story beat does happen, it's really early into phase 3.
yeah.
And then we spend all of phase 3 with Petra and like her consciousness Subaru, as well as seeing like the rest of Al's interactions and the Felt Camp doing what they can to gather up everything. And then similar to how we had the Gladiator Island phase, where we just see here's what Subaru's up to in the midst of the other 3 phases that go
He's
on in
going to
the
have
meantime.
his otherworld phase.
He'll have his Otherworld 1, and then when he comes back from that, then the rest of the Amelia camp has joined up, and we're back to the perspective of following Subaru and the rest of the allies with Al as the opposition force with
Yeah.
whatever he's doing there.
And the reason why I would suggest that now is because now they've taken Felt hostage. They've already shown a lot of the big important moments for her camp, so that obviously her camp's going to have the climactic moment when they come help her. But now I think the major focus will be on Felt as a character with Al being there now. And that's
And with Heinkel as well. I think that's going to be a major character
and
interaction.
then it will be the element of, and then Felt being the Lion King cometh again is going to mend the relationship between the Sword Saint and his father, and make our boy Foria proud.
Now, we did get the Krush mention this phase as well with
The
the connection to the
Duchess.
Dragon Blood.
Yeah,
Is there a world where, because Heinkel doesn't get the dragon's blood from Volcanica, that they come to a conclusion of maybe this could work and attempt some sort of transfusion between Krush and his wife
Ooh, I
to
didn't think of that.
help both of them?
Yeah.
Just a possibility.
There's potential.
I think one of the reasons why I believe that, the Felt Camp, real arc is going to be later is because the Blood of the Dragon thing is very interesting. I think if Volcanica does die this arc, right, let's say, it solves a lot of problems, right? And I think it solves almost too many problems, right? Because it means that a lot of the illnesses, all these things that are going on will be able to be cured. Crucial will be back. Maybe it's important that she needs to be back earlier so she can have an arc.
No, one gets cured.
Yeah.
Is only one? I thought it was multiple people.
There's only like one drop. It's like the last drop of blood from a true dragon's heart is the thing that can actually fix something. Roswell has lied to Amelia that she can use it for her people.
Right. Okay,
but
got it.
really he just wants to use it on Echidna, and I'm guessing that's what Heinkel is specifically wanting to fix Luana.
Yeah.
Or whatever his wife's name is. And that's the goal here. But it's entirely possible that Volcanica's not going to have any because he's a dragon husk, and that we're going to have to track down the dragonkin.
Yes, because that's a plot
Who,
that's being reinforced more and more. Where is the dragonkin?
Who I want to shout out a member of our community, Sean, who wrote out this incredible Volcanica dragonkin theory for me.
Ooh.
And I want to read out what he's posted for us. This was done in our ReZero podcast channel on our Discord. If you haven't joined that, you definitely should take the chance. let's see, what did he say specifically? For the topic regarding the Dragonkin, I'm, Sean, is of the belief that Capella is the Dragonkin of Volcanica. Madeline was an outcast because of her existence as Dragonkin, and Capella, from her monologue in Arc 5, states that she is the same. Capella can shapeshift, yes, but her human body and dragon body are one and the same, and Tappe has used her shapeshift authority to throw us off that trail. When she's in her dragon form, she appears as a black dragon, and the only other one that we know of is Volgren, who opposed Volcanica. So Capella is rebelling against her parent, so to speak, feeling angry at him for making her the way that she is. We know, thanks to Madeline's name chapter, Balleroy was the first one that she met that wanted to show her the outside world. In Arc 5, Capella rants about having someone who wanted to show her the world, someone close to her that she loved, but that person in turn didn't love her like she did them. This person could be someone from the Karsten family, since the monarchy was alive and well back then. The Karsten family was super close to them. Maybe that's also why Capella was so infatuated with Krush, because her appearance resembled one of Krush's ancestors. And as a final parallel to Madeline, loving someone who didn't love you back in the same way. Well, Madeline was able to accept that, Capella wasn't, which harkens back to the Sin Archbishop being stuck in the past, unable to move on while their counterparts can.
I, of course, really like that. I mean, it makes sense, too. I mean, like, I think one thing we talked about Capella, we said there is a likelihood that Capella wasn't a royal member of the royal family proper.
No, that she knew Capella Emeralda Lagunica.
Yes, exactly. And it would make sense if that was the reason why she called it, because that was the friend that she had that, like, probably treated her more like the deity dragon rather than the, like, oh, this is my friend Volcanica, like, and she's like, I'm just Capella, you know what I mean?
It could also set up like a symbolic parallel between Fourier and Krush and Capella and this person as well, maybe.
Yeah, indeed. 100%.
And you could even, on top of that, add maybe the reason she wants to look like Lagunica is because of that connection with her quote-unquote parent.
Yeah, that she's there, like, because clearly Volcanica has some kind of instinctual love for the descendants of the Lion King here.
Yes.
So if Capella, as Volcanica's Dragonkin, had a deep-seated attachment of something similar to Emerauda Lagunica, who maybe even rejected her or rejected them because it was just, I look like my ancestor. You're only doing this because you see my body that way. This isn't love of any way. And then that's what warps her to such a degree.
It's very funny because in that way, right, like she's all about appearance, right? I think the idea of lust, in the sense that people lust after her not because they find her attractive. She was concerned about how the people viewed her because they didn't view her as she wanted to be viewed. They viewed her only as Volcanica. So that's why she's obsessed with like the forms that she takes, right? Or the way people see forms. Yeah.
It would also explain how she genuinely did have dragon blood, that she could infect people.
Yeah, because she said that, no, this is just part of my body. Like it makes sense. And like, how else does that make sense if it's not? Because I mean, like, it's corrupting, sure, but like, her being a dragonkin, what we know about dragonkin now, it just makes a lot more sense if she is one.
And the reason why it's corrupting is because she herself is corrupted. She's fallen.
Yes,
like,
right.
and that could draw parallels between her and Geese, right? Like, how does Pandora help twist her a bit further on that path to make her Sin Archbishop of Lust?
It's entirely possible. Yeah,
I've always thought very interestingly that she probably is one of the ones that is, and I know that sounds weird, but like, due to her quote at the end of the season, it's what I don't even really follow this book, I just do whatever I want, right? Like, and the fact that she's lived this life as a mercenary, it seems a little bit weird because like everyone else is in this delusional thing. Capella doesn't seem as deluded, she sure, she's like vicious and psychopathic, right? But like the things that she says isn't wrong by any stretch or seems histrionic. Like every other Sin Archbishop seems to be like obsessed with something that's like clouding their view on reality completely. Or Capella seems to operate just fine.
Well, Capella's motivation is almost that she wants to prove her points to other people and won't accept anyone rejecting her philosophy.
On love in particular, right?
And in a way, the witch cult, as it is now, is very much the personification of that. We're the only one of the archbishops that was actively working for the purpose of the cult's goal is the one who had his hangups about being diligent versus slothful.
Yeah.
And like I think that I agree that she is one that wasn't driven insane by her witch factor, but she got it because she was insane.
Yeah, she's already insane. Yeah.
Like, my speculation is just the insanity came from a rejection from Emerauda Lagunica, and that could have influenced by Pandora.
Right. I mean,
Who could have even like whispered in your ears, like, "Oh, she
Yeah.
doesn't love you. You don't love her. It isn't real. You just see her flesh. See?" And then she makes Emerauda Lagunica like change shape in front of Capella's eyes, using like the same perception thing she does to Guse. And it's like, see, would you still love her if she looked like this? If she doesn't look like the Lion King anymore?
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree. I think like something like that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Sean. That's a really cool idea.
And I really like, I've talked about this before, but like my opinion is something like Al, Capella, Echidna, probably something like that, and then Pandora, and that's going to be like the main antagonist throughout the rest of the series.
I think Al doesn't. I mean, if whether or not Volcanica does, I don't think Al survives the arc.
That's what I mean. I said today we have Al, and then we have.
Oh, I got you.
Like
I was doing it bit by bit. Yeah.
I don't know if Echidna will be an antagonist now. I think there is a level of conflict that is a result of what she has already done in the past, and that her as Omega is almost acting as an attempt to maybe not redeem herself, but make up for or try and fix some of the things that she's done wrong.
I believe that too, but I think after everything that's going to happen, we can't just let you do whatever you want. Sorry. Hello.
After everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, everything that's going to happen here with Al, I feel like there's almost no way that whatever like Echidna is doing is wholly good. You know what I mean? This is my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair, because this is Graveyard Echidna that's possessed Omega, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe Roswell does need to succeed. Maybe we should be
Maybe
to actually work out.
If Subaru works with Mother Echidna, that could be a actually very fruitful and not toxic relationship, you know?
And that's why Roswell's,
Imagine they do get that up and running, and the first thing that Mother Echidna does, if she has somebody to like get the other Echidna's memories somehow, is like go straight to Amelia. It's like, "I'm sorry for calling you a bitch and a slut. I want to apologize for that. I wasn't in my right mind.
I have some unresolved trauma."
Yeah, I had some issues with your mother, and they have been resolved since I last spoke to you.
But honestly, it's one of those things where you wonder, like in an idyllic situation, I don't know how. Do you think that it's possible that Roswell and Betty are going to get what they want, which is Mother Echidna back, without any stipulations? You know what I mean? It feels unlikely.
I think definitely Roswell is going to die at some point in the story.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably going to be in service of whatever's.
Yeah.
Or, whatever.
It's going to be his last almost mockery of Subaru's goal. I think because Subaru's going to be really angry when you're like, you set these stipulations for me to save everyone, and yet you're going to go off and die like a coward. Screw you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be a moment of Subaru being angry, because I think Roswell's going to be another one of those people he loses, and he's going to be very emotionally complicated in terms of feelings for it, right? Because like, he did this to himself, but also I couldn't stop him. Like,
I don't think it's impossible that Roswell accept that he will never get to be with Echidna again, but still wants to achieve his goal of bringing her back, and ends up sacrificing himself
to accomplish
in order to do that somehow.
Because he can't do it if the last drop of the Dragon Blade goes to Limb.
Not through that route. Maybe there is another way, but who knows?
Exactly. That's what I mean, and that's why he would probably have to sacrifice quite to do it. I also think that there's a good likelihood that whatever happens in the future of the Ram, he has to decide between, the best character arc moment would probably be like, do you save Ram or do you bring back Echidna? And he has to choose between who he actually is at this point.
Speculation question for you while we're on this topic. Omega finds Echidna's book in the library.
Ooh.
And she gets all of future Echidna's memories from the version that has died, not the one that got saved in the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a success of Roswell's goal? Because it's already been stated that just replicating the memories doesn't make you the same person.
You have the soul already.
But this is her soul in a Ryuzu clone.
Well, we saw what happened with Subaru, right?
Yes, like he returned to his full self, even with additional memories that he didn't previously have.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd probably be the same, but like you'd have to wonder what would happen to Echidna at that point, right?
Well, that's what I'm like wondering. Like, is that the success? Is that the success state?
Yeah, this is one of those things where you have to ask yourself, and this is actually a good like question, and it's something that I do think that a good person, Echidna, mixed with the bad that she knows probably exists, sees it, and then is bad suddenly, or is she able to temper it due to what she knows about how much she loves, her family and nurturing and learning, like teaching, right? Like,
well, I think that if we do have like the evil Witch of Greed, Omega right now, get all the memories of Mother Echidna, that she just returns to being Mother Echidna with extra experiences.
Yeah, probably, right? Because my idea is that Echidna's quote-unquote evil because of a decision she's made, not because she knows things. Like, it feels like her without the care of other people.
And
you know what I
being
mean?
a byproduct of that, like almost being the symptom of that evil.
Right, because if Echidna was born with her witch factor and authority, then she has always known what's going to happen her entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's been
so
playing
the only
her
way
life
that
on autopilot, basically, if you think about it.
So you're not going to like say feel any grief the day that your mom dies, because you've known that she was going to die from the moment you learned how to read.
Yeah.
And you know exactly how it was going to happen, what day was going to happen, who was going to do it, the emotions everyone around you was going to feel. Because we see from the Witch of Greed that she has to fake her emotions. Like, it's all a ruse that she's putting on around Subaru. Around everyone.
Because she can't understand people.
No. And I think that's probably the lie, that she's never made the attempt to understand people, that she's always taken the shortcut of, this is what they want to see. I'm going to pretend to be like, she's reading the book and sees like, oh, my father is crying over my mother's grave. And his daughter comes and rubs his back and says these kind words to him.
Yeah. Exactly.
And she just does that, not because she's, instinctually trying to comfort her family, but because that's what the book says she does, and that's how she learns how to fake all of it.
But then her becoming a mother and a teacher properly is the thing that...
Yeah, I'm going to guess it's a failure with Al somehow. Like, she and even might admit to him, I failed you. Like, yes. I'm sorry, you are like you are one of my experiments and it failed. I apologize. It's over and done with. Clearly, your power is not enough to go against all of this. I'm going to have to find something different. And that might be her turning point.
And that's also where the imposter syndrome comes in for Ao, and why he's like, I hate Natsuki Subaru, because Subaru's taken everything from him almost in that sense, right?
Yeah. Because you ruin your support system. Alternative seems better, And that's the thing about her, right? She only intellect, being who knows everything. You read something on the page and you need to be able to interpret it, right? Echidna can interpret things, but the one thing that she can interpret, and this is her biggest flaw, is emotions, because she has everything choreographed ahead of time. Like, she doesn't know what it means to feel genuinely of a sudden occurrence. Like, most emotions are born out of surprise, or like you intellectualizing something in the moment, and then the reaction of that sort of synthesis creates feeling, right?
Which is probably why she like bonded and like attached herself so quickly to Subaru, because he's the first person to give her that surprise.
Yeah. It's
like, in their first meeting, he immediately tries to leave without asking anything.
Yeah. It's also then adds like a bit of it adds extra weight of when she's crying and getting angry at Amelia in that trial, right? Like there's that emotion there is an important plot point of difference between the way she has handled her life up until that point.
Yeah, I also think that like not only is she jealous of Amelia's experiences, right, or what, but like there's part of me that still believes that she is a part of Amelia's creation, right? So at that
Almost
point,
certainly.
At that point, it's like maybe she sacrificed a lot of who she was in order to make this, and it was the last opportunity for her to, experience something like being a teacher, right? Like whatever she did to make Amelia was probably something she had to sacrifice herself for. I think like that's likely that like part of everything with the mixed blood and the trials and everything that she set up was a plan for Amelia specifically.
Or Satella.
Yeah.
Or
possibly.
Satella, but it's the same thing, right? Like we're pretty much on the same page. That's more or less that Amelia is a clone of Satella, right?
Her own, maybe
not her soul.
I'm not positive on it. Like genuinely, there is a connection. I think Echidna is involved, but I also haven't fully discounted that Amelia just looks like Satella because that's like her main character point for the first 3 arcs. Is that she resembles the Witch of Envy, but needs to be her own person.
My main thing is, especially with the Ode experimentation in Arc 8, my whole thing is that, again, because there's a separation between the soul and the Ode, I think Amelia just has her Ode, like the blueprints of her body, basically. She doesn't have the same soul. They are separate people, but she has like the same blueprints for her body. Like,
I mean, maybe, but if this is the same spell that's trapped Subaru that did seal Satella away, then her body, her soul, everything is just trapped beneath the tower right now.
that's why only the Ode could be used, though, right? Because like you can examine the Ode and manipulate the Ode and maybe copy it to build something there, but you couldn't take this. Like there has to be a new soul in there because the soul of the previous one is still kicking about.
Yes, but the Ode is also what determines your affinity, and Amelia's is fire, not.
I thought the
yin.
soul was what would determine affinity.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I'm not too sure on that.
We need to read. There's an entire 100-page about
Like that was explained by Roswell that each person has the affinity for it. That all your mana is pulled in through your gates to your Ode, and then expelled back to the gate as magic, based on your own affinity. We could probably go and check that out. Actually, I genuinely might have the book right next to me. Hold on a second.
Oh, here he goes.
Time to pull out the knowledge from the Forbidden Library.
I do. I have it right here. Oh, let's see. Where's creepy Roswell bath scene? What to do? Learning scripts and books. Like this is where it's properly explained, and the only place it's properly explained of like what it comes from. You two can keep talking for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is that my reason for
Oh, sorry, you cut out there?
structure, the reason for me believing Amelia experiment structure is because of Puck's existence, right? Like I think that that's pretty glaring as a reason. Like she says you're forbidden to interfere excessively with their life. If you do, you'll cease to be who you are. And it's like she's a guardian of Amelia from the very beginning, and it's like this was something that she had also planned, is what it feels like.
Yes, that she needed to have some circumstance ready for watching over Amelia while she was frozen.
Yeah.
Knowing that she was going to get frozen and creating Puck for that purpose.
Yeah.
And
Which,
also, like,
in a weird way, means that she may have made Puck with an attachment to Amelia the same way that Al seems to have been made with an attachment to Satella, if we're correct on all that.
Yeah, because there's a link there.
Another thing is that it's like Puck being the beast of the end is something is that like, why does the world need to end if anything would happen to Amelia? And it's obviously, or maybe not so obviously, because like Super's not even there by the time he's had that nickname for a while, right? So he's presented that form before. So did Puck go haywire? Not so, because he went on his directive properly when he greeted, Amelia.
It was searching for her for a long time because he was so relieved when he found her, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, he was. But it's like, one thing that I've always been curious about is like the reincarnation of, the witch, right? Arbiter Meliquera, right? You mean the world's destruction, right? It's one of those things where it's like, I don't believe in the time loop theory because it makes no sense. Because in order for, like the witch factors had to have been passed on to, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, like the idea is that like whatever, Satella or sorry, whatever Amelia is, seems likely that she is exactly what Meliquera was saying, because I don't think he's lying, right? Like why would he be lying? I think the truth is pretty clear. It's not just an arbitrary thing, unless it's based on the true future that the observers see, which in that case, maybe that's the reason why he's saying it, but like it can be changed, but like
it's also a point of note that spirits have a greater understanding of the way the world works, and concepts like mana, the ode, the soul, and then dragons being like that step above of the ultimate form of living mana, right? So it adds that thing of like, when Meliquera is saying that, there's something there. It's more than just prejudice that's being said there, right?
Right. In the replicant of like their appearances, initially at the start of the story.
Oh, sorry, you cut out there.
Sorry. At the beginning of the story, you're meant to believe that the prejudice that Amelia experiences is entirely irrational, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good shorthand for everything that she goes through, right? Because in a way it is rational because she's not Satella, right?
Yeah.
But at the same point, we're getting more and more clear, obviously, what we can see from Satella herself appearance, that it's not just like, oh, she's a half-elf, and that means that she must look like Satella. It's like, no, she is exactly Satella. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not...
I think I'm just so against the thought that Amelia is Satella that I just can't see the connections that you're like describing what as actually existing, because Satella is still alive and well, just sealed away somewhere.
That's why I mean that she's not actually, she's like a clone, right? Because this is the most rational explanation to that end.
That's why I when I mentioned it, it's the ode of like the blueprint of the body, because they are separate people. And I want to say, even if Satella was dead, my thing would be wouldn't want them to be the same soul or the same person, because I think that takes away from the story rather than adding more to it, in my opinion.
And also the thing with like her being the witch device is like, there's nothing there that makes sense with Satella's character. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Okay, I have one more point of evidence against it for being a clone of Satella, and that's that even if, or whether or not Al is a copy of Flugel, every clone that we know of cannot age. They don't change. Their body is locked in the way that they are. Even the ones made like by Echidna in the very end of her life, when she's the most experienced and knowledgeable form, she doesn't. All the copies are just copies with artificial bodies wrapped around the ode.
Yeah, sorry. It seems weird, right? But like, I also think about it.
I genuinely think she just looks like Satella.
I think but this is my posit for this, and why Amelia would be different from everyone else, especially if like Minerva is her mother and all of that stuff like was involved with that. I feel like the reason that Amelia is separate is because it was a thing of like Echidna maybe doing that with the baby Amelia in the womb kind of thing.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. It's like she was a genuinely born Minerva, and the I don't know, I can't think of her name, Fortuna's brother, right? Yeah. And then something I don't know what happened, but like something happened to make it, because obviously they're looking for her. They're like, did she get the witch factor? But she didn't, obviously. Did she get... So then you have to go down the line. You have to be like, Did she get the witch factor? No, obviously not. Why does she have the seal? It's because she's probably imprinted some part of Satella onto her. That's like the best I can do, right? You know, there's really nothing else I can say. Maybe she has the key to the seal of Satella. Maybe she's it's weird, right? Like, I don't know.
With all of the preconditions and difficulties with experimenting here, it would add an element too of like the reason why it makes sense for Amelia is because she's already a half elf. She's already got some preconditions that she shares, and then a kid that just slightly manipulates that to get that to what she wants. And
it'll replicate with Pandora's desire to manipulate her just slightly to get exactly. It's like, also, like, I think there is a lot to be said about the fact that I think that, you know, Echidna knows them already. Like, she knew all the witches. She knows Minerva. She knows all these people. To her, Amelia wouldn't just be some stranger that she can hate just because of her circumstances. She'd be literally like, oh, this is my friend's daughter. You know, this is my friends that I know, like, that I had to sign a guardian to, that I had to, you know, it's like,
not only my friend's daughter who I experimented on to do this, to make, to change this way. Because, like, again, it's that thing of, like, I don't think she helped in, like, the creation of Amelia, but more like she kind of changed her a bit when Minerva was pregnant. Like,
and then I think about it, it's like, why would you create a child of immense power like that and force so much expectation on it? Because, like, obviously, Amelia does have things special about her. She said it herself. Belaquera said it. She said it. She admitted it when she, obviously Pandora knows it, and it's like, what is her end goal with Amelia?
I mean, even with the way Geese reacts to her when he sees it, like, I think the idea that them looking the same as coincidence would take away from the story in that.
And also, like, I think
it adds to the story for Amelia's character specifically more than anything else, because Geese gets over his obsession and, like, ridiculous things of seeing her by the next flashback and is then just chasing her around like a babysitter.
True, but I also think that, like, her involvement is. I think it's very unfortunate because I think that at one point, reason for that wasn't her being. Sorry.
Yeah, Discord has been killing you like crazy for the last 10 minutes. We might need to start just making the call to wrap this up.
Wrapping up, yeah.
But basically, all I was going to say is that there is a reason why they had her, and I don't think it was necessarily malicious at first, but because of the lack of protectors in her life, it slowly got to the point where the evil Echidna could manipulate her. You know what I mean? And that's why Roswell's there. That's why Puck's there. And that's why, you know. Anyways.
With that, any just kind of final predictions for what's going to happen next in the arc?
We have a lot to be saying about this phase in this arc. I mean, like, we'll do it chapter by chapter, but, like, man, I'm really excited. I think one thing that I predict that I haven't said yet about this arc is I think we touched on a lot of it. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw do you think that the Kingdom of Lagunica is going to respond to this yet? Or do you think it's going to be like Al's literally just going to take a beeline to Kararagi and we're probably
It did. That was why he sent Volcanica in the opposite direction at first, to lead their military away from him.
To lead the Royal Knights.
Okay, got it.
Also explained why there aren't as much guards guarding Roy in the capital when he comes to get him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which sick hiding place, by the way. Just want to say that. Shout out to you, Lagunican guards. Like, that is an effective sell for him.
Yeah. It's
I think Roy's involvement is going to be interesting too, because he gets more of a character, which sounds odd. Like, after seeing everything with the other gluttony, I wouldn't be surprised if Tepe adds this as a, you didn't know this about this character. And obviously we don't know too much about a lot of the Synarch bishops anyways, right? Like, I wonder if we're starting to get revealed exactly what Al's relationship is to the witch factor and what it means to be on opposite sides, you know? Because I think, like, maybe somebody like Roy would know, like, oh, you have witch factor too. That's weird, right? Like, why do you have that? You know?
Stuff like that. Yeah. My prediction, this one's going to sound like it's coming almost out of left field, but because it's Roy specifically that they have with them, and as the one that survived everything in Arc 6,
Black 7.
they are headed to Kararagi with the setup of where everyone was going in the beginning of Arc 9. I would not doubt that they run back into Julius and Ricardo
Yeah, that's a good point.
when they get into Kararagi.
We're gonna see Mimi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
And maybe see a way to return memories or a name to someone.
yeah, I'd like that. I'd really like to see Julius, Ricardo, and also Mimi TV hetero. Tepei's going out of his way this arc to introduce characters that were side characters that didn't get a lot of screen time and give thing. I think if you redo Julius Anastasia only again, it'd be like, okay, come on, right? Like you have to give a little bit more, right? And we just had this stuff with what's his face? I love the strongest guy in Karagi. What's his name?
Halibal.
Yeah, we just had Halibal. I love him, but like we need everybody in Anastasia camp to get some highlights. You know?
Halibal is also too much of a counter for Al because of his curse tools, that he could get something on Al without Al even considering a reset.
And I'm pretty sure Halibal's still dealing with a lot of the zombies and
maybe
stuff
the
like
undead
that.
a bit still. Yeah. I wouldn't put past Halibal to be trying to get rid of that first before going back home.
Well, because they still had to deal with everything in the Kararagi border too, where there was some popping up. So Halibal might be stuck involved with it. I just thought that because it's Roy, and we got to mention that Julius and Anastasia are specifically going back up to Lagunica through the Kararagi border.
A Joshua moment, yeah.
Yeah, and that we have the note of they are heading west to Kararagi. Those paths could line up again.
I'll posit that maybe the Black Serpent will show up at some point this arc.
That would be interesting.
Because especially with the Dragon Blood stuff and Amelia's like main motivation to do all this, apart from obviously her helping people, is she wants to use the blood to help people, and Serpent's venom's there. But also Roy is the match Archbishop for the Black Serpent, so just thematically the Black Serpent coming here would be big. And I know this is it. I know the ifs don't pertain too much to the main story, but also the reason Halibal was with Subaru in the Wrath If is because he deals with the Black Serpent somehow. And maybe
could also use a win against a Mob Beast.
A Mob Beast, yeah. And
they don't have a ton of accomplishments under their belt.
And it's also important why they do so well with Reinhard not there, right? Because obviously anything that's attached before, it's with Reinhard at the helm, so obviously it's going to be there. But if they can prove themselves outside of that, it's great for them. But it's also just a thing of, I think that would be thematically kind of interesting. Because if we wrap up all of the big three Great Marbeasts there, we also get the promise of Subaru saying, I'll kill all your kids, Mama.
Yeah, true.
And we then have the thing of then, like, we're getting moved up more and more into like final stages of final bosses. Like it's either going to be Sirius or Capella, who will be the final Archbishop to be dealt with, and then either Pandora or Kidna is a toss up for who the big bad is, kind of thing. So yeah, that's just kind of some ideas throwing out there.
And another thing that you're going to say, and I point it was the fact that like if we get Julius back again, we get to see him react to the fact that Al being cocky, being like, "Oh yeah, I have Subaru."
Yeah.
And imagine how Julius would react to that, right? Like, I think that's an important part of his character, and something that, like, we hear he already got his name chapter, but I still think he has a lot left to do in the story, especially Joshua and stuff like that. I think giving him the opportunity here would also make sense, and it would also make me predict one more thing. We'd probably have to get a viewpoint in Krush camp at that point, because all the camps being present for this one arc would be a very interesting thing to see, like, the fallout of this major situation. Here's how everyone's dealing with it, you know.
Especially moving on from like Priscilla's legacy too. That'd be really thematically poignant, I think.
True.
Yeah, that all is great. I mean, the last thing I built on that is like the Julius reacting to Subaru moment. Maybe Al has to break his shroud just before he throws everyone, and Julius is one of the people that goes Subaru as he sees him go down or whatever. I don't know, just like a dramatic moment, like.
True.
Boom. But yeah, I think we made many predictions here. I'm very confident in the Otherworld phase idea mini arc thing.
I mean, I'd really love it. Yeah,
I would
be so
love
fun.
it so much.
And if
nothing
doesn't
else,
happen, it's a great
I just want to see Beatrice be human for like 2 chapters and have the experience with that.
Parents, see how cute.
why do you have this white blonde little girl?
Especially because Subaru and Beatrice have that brother and sister dynamic. She's going to play a daughter dynamic for them.
I was going to say their dynamic shifts a lot between brother sister, father daughter, mother son. Like it rotates around. But him just showing up to Kenichi and Naoko, it's like, hello. It's me again. I've been gone for like a year and a half. This is your granddaughter, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's my Westerner. Here's your blonde white.
Did you know we have cousins in the West?
Yeah. Here's my French daughter.
I'm gonna call the police on you. Yeah.
Because then we either have the moment of where it's slightly before he leaves, or it's super effective and it's like maybe like 5 or 10 years in the future from where he left, or something really sad. So they've missed him for a long time.
Wow, Subaru, what a great skincare routine you found. That you don't look like you've aged more than a year.
You had a child? We are going to talk to you about contraception, son. Sit some down.
Yeah. When I was asking if you had a girlfriend, I was trying to lead that into a safe... you know what? I'm just going to leave it there. This has been Phase 2 analysis for Arc 9. We're caught up. Like,
we did it, boys!
We don't have any more phases to analyze.
What do we do?
God.
What have we done?
We have 4 ifs to hit, a ton of side content, and then just anything else we want to touch.
Yeah,
we can do some anime-only stuff.
Side content.
Don't worry, guys. We have like genuinely like at least 3 years of content left of what we could do with stuff that we can.
Yeah.
So, and that's before the story even gets updated, right? So,
yeah, we'll probably do like mini videos instead of like a full podcast. Maybe like 10-minute things of as chapters come out. We'll find something to discuss. I have a couple ideas I'm throwing around, honestly, but we'll figure it out.
But apart from that, thank you everyone at home for watching through up until this point and on our journey through Arc 7 to catching up. This was an amazing experience, not only to read, especially luckily for me, mostly spoiler blind, but also like as a community thing. Just tell us what you think in the comments. Tell us what you think about our theories. Are we correct? Are we really, really dumb and we've missed something? Let us know, because the part of the thing I love about this podcast is just the community conversation in the comments and in the ReZero Discord. So if you're interested in joining that discussion, please comment below, join the ReZero Discord, talk to us about it. We want to hear what you think too, because your opinions are just as valuable. I mean, Sean had that great theory that we got to build on for so long there. Maybe you guys have a theory that's going to unlock another thing in our brain and we're going to be like, oh, yo, we put these puzzle pieces down, you know?
Maybe we'll do a theory video.
Yeah! This has been an amazing journey. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye!
Bye.
Bye.